we're live. Or at least we're recording. I'm not streaming this on account of... I haven't exactly, posted that idea to you. I think I did the first two live, but this will be good.
Okay.
So, today we have on
Hi.
Maya. You let me know if you want to have your last name out there. I had a writer on, and then, last week, she's like, could you take my last name off in case, future jobs start looking for me, and they hear me, cussing and talking maybe controversial topics on your podcast? I was like, sure, I'll get rid of that. But
We'll stick with Maya for now, just in case.
Just in case. In case you, So, have you entered, actual retirement?
No, not at all.
You're just freely unemployed.
No, I am currently employed.
Oh, you've gotten a job since we've started this discussion.
Yes. No? Well, since the last time I spoke to you,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I start in December.
Nice.
Yes.
What's the industry?
Insurance.
Insurance? Sounds like a desk job with just... Are you talking to clients or are you talking to...
I will be.
Okay. You should be able. So did you so you did retail work that had engraving as one of its big perks of backbone of the company.
Correct.
Remember that. Now let me think here. So what was your prompting of leaving that? Actually,
it wasn't my choice.
Oh, goody.
I had a death in my family, and my uncle, who was very close with us, was closer to a father figure than I ever had.
Nice.
Past my sperm donor, and it was very difficult to deal with. And he passed away on December 10th of last year, and being that was going to be my 25th Christmas, I knew exactly what goes into achieving what I needed to achieve through that time, and I was not capable of such things at that moment. So for the first time in my existence with Things Remembered, I reached out to my home office, and they offered me, we have an employee assistance program.
Yeah.
So I went out on leave.
Okay.
And in the midst of that, they declared bankruptcy.
The whole company's just
Yes, sir.
What?
That's the short version.
That's insane.
Yes, sir.
That is absolutely insane. Because I feel like we could almost name them now, since there might be no worry unless they're reconstructing.
No, they're still around. They're
just going through they're pulling a Trump. They're just hitting bankruptcy as a financial tool, and
we went from more than 400 stores down to 143.
Jeez.
And were assumed by another conglomeration for the umpteenth time in the more than 2 decades I spent there.
I feel like that whoever is sort of running that company doesn't have a good long form style in how they run their things. Because, if you have to run the calculations, we have to get rid of 400 stores out of our 500 to get to a good stasis. It sounds like you tried to get too big for your britches.
I never had a problem in my store being successful, but our corporate did.
Our corporate had a problem with you being successful or just getting success anywhere else?
Our corporate had a problem maintaining the success of the company. Bad decisions, poor choices in buying,
disconnect with how the thing works in a way.
And also, for the entire duration of my employment there, I always said that job was like my abusive boyfriend. He treated me like crap, and apparently I loved it.
Oh, I could actually see that now that I remember going in there and
Correct.
Getting things taken care of.
Correct.
And just looking at the entire set, because I did retail as well in a grocery setting for a supermarket, and I remember looking at this going how many people take care of this? And you're 2, and I'm just when? Tonight? Oh God.
Yes, sir.
Oh God.
Yes, sir.
I feel like you then are really looking forward to being able to sit down and just talk to idiots instead of just having to sit there to deal with idiots above and below.
Absolutely.
And exceptional physical work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bless.
And then some.
Well, that's a very... So is that location gone?
No.
No, it's still... Because that's a really good location in
is.
terms of real estate and everything.
It is. It was scheduled to go down. Mm-hmm. So was the Sanford location as well.
Yeah.
A few days before, they found out, no, that Altamont's staying open. The day they were supposed to close, Sanford remained open, but they did close down the one in West Oaks and the one in Fashion Square.
Those two make sense. For
Correct.
those that don't know about like Florida or Central Florida with like its malls, like Mall of Millennia is a godsend, even though it's a very simple strip mall. At least it always appears to be massive, but I think it's just more the restaurants on the side than anything. Oviedo Mall is a joke. It's a strip mall with a theater and Chick-fil-A.
Correct.
Fashion Square was like peak, like back like in the 2000s, like late 90s. Like it was peak when I was in high school, like around like 08. Like, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just thinking that was very close to around the time it was built.
Well, yeah, like I don't. When was Fashion Square Mall built?
In my existence in Florida, yes, but I don't know. I don't remember the exact
when it was
date.
built or anything. Yeah, so Fashion Square has been like kind of dribbling itself down to the bottom reaches.
Correct.
But Altamont has been the consistently strong mall of Central Florida.
Yes.
Next to maybe Florida Mall.
Correct.
And West Oaks Mall is in the gutter. Like,
correct.
It's next to the gutter. The only thing that's keeping that thing alive is right now they have like for those that don't have toll roads, there's this thing called SunPass, or these companies that provide you the ability to just hold 80 and go straight through the toll and never have to hand cash to a smelly person. Not all of them are smelly, but
Some of them can be.
I actually don't, or have to learn how to toss your quarters right before you fuck your gumball options.
Amen. I've definitely missed that basket a few different times.
Oh, at that point, you look at it, you look around, you go, is it worth petering around my car to find more coins?
It couldn't. Somebody's behind me honking their horn. I'm like, gotta go.
Charge me. Take the picture of my license plate. I'll call guilty and give you your 50 cents. One for postage, one for the toll that I missed.
Exactly.
But yeah. So, well, then that sounds like good decision making. Was it the Sanford location, like an independent location, or was it Seminole Town Center Mall?
Seminole Town Center Mall.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that place does pretty well.
It used to before the shootings got real rampant up there.
Oh, wait, like, okay, so I, in a way, ignore all of the gun violence in America these days. So when I hear it's that local, I go like, oh no, Pulse has returned. What? So has it like been in the mall, or has it just been around Sanford and just...
The first incident that I can recall, I was still employed at Altamont, and there was a shooting in the parking lot of the Sanford Mall.
Oh, okay.
And the person that had the gun went into the mall. So they completely shut the mall down, like lockdown, so nobody could go in, nobody could go out.
Yeah.
And this happened in the evening.
Yeah.
So everybody in the mall was there until probably, after midnight, 1 a.m.
Yeah.
because they had to interview everybody.
Yeah.
That was the first one. And then within a matter of weeks, there was a second. And I think it took a couple months for the third.
Just a touch of gun violence, no mass shooting stuff.
Correct.
Okay. Normal gun violence, everyone. No.
But Altamont, like Sanford, it's very much a small town feel to the clientele there.
Yeah.
And when the small town knows what just happened, they're going to avoid it like the plague.
Yeah. No, well, Melanie's got that impression about like Winter Park Village because she heard about like gang violence for inductions at the Winter Park Village, and I'm like, well, that's a very interesting location. I'm going to call you not a liar, but relative bullshit on maintaining a very ridiculous level of fear about, like, the center of, like, corporate Winter Park, basically, with the Winter Park Villages.
Well, I remember when it was Winter Park Mall.
What, was that called a mall there, where that Regal was and everything?
Prior to its existence, yes.
It's called was there a mall inside the theater?
The theater did not exist.
Well, like, the body of the building that is where the theater is...
It's all brand new.
Okay.
Every part of that is
so that whole outdoor area with Ruth Chris's Steaks or whatnot, that was all considered an outdoor mall, basically, when Borders used to be there and stuff?
Borders was attached to the mall when it was there.
Okay, my mind is...
Remember, I've been here since 87.
I know, I'm getting a history lesson. So, the Winter Park Village area, that whole block, like Gay Road and everything, that all was like an actual mall. And then what, they took the roof off of it?
No, they leveled it.
They leveled it and rebuilt.
Correct.
And just put like some of the same businesses in there.
I don't know of any of the same businesses that are there
Okay,
now.
so like they had a macaroni grill that turned into a PF Chang's, and is a PF Chang's now. They have the Ruth Chris's Steaks or whatnot.
Yeah, none of those were.
They threw in that strip where the theater is with the pizza shop and the sushi store, and then to the left has been a rotation. Actually, I think it's two things. It's got a yogurt, frozen yogurt thing, and then it's got a rotating restaurant basically between just whatever small business jumps in there and can do their best, and then Cheesecake Factory.
Correct.
Just dominates the rest of the parking lot, basically. Yes. And a bunch of, like, non-important stores and restaurants that are trying to, like, keep it together in Winter Park when most of them... I think even, like, that upper-classy batch that's Winter Park are even, like, really conscious about where they spend their money or spending it on, like, nonsense.
This is true.
Like, I've learned that, like, I would much sooner have my own homemade steak than go anywhere else.
Absolutely.
And then I also, like, had smoked ribs, like, home smoked ribs for, like, the first time at the beginning of October. And I'm just, like, really depressed about my next set of, like, restaurant ribs. You're like, oh, it's drowning in sauce.
Well.
There's no good rub on it. It wasn't smoked for 4 hours. Oh, how do people live with this bullshit?
I could recommend you to go to Four Rivers. They're quite tasty.
Four Rivers is good. Four Rivers. Yeah, the barbecue smokehouse. They give you a rack of ribs? Or they just give you little splits of ribs? Because I've been there. I used to have their pulled pork, and I was pretty happy about that. And then they had, like, their sweets corner. We can get, like, the orange cream sickle cake. Like, it's a 3-tier giant piece of cake.
I didn't even know about that.
Dude, okay. So, Four Rivers Smokehouse, they're in Winter Park. Or now they have, 4 locations? They've got UCF. They've got Winter Park, the home base. They've got... one up in Longwood, right there by I-4 and 434. But they have this sweet treats, like, side corner.
Okay. That's
like, so, like, if as I remember with the Winter Park one, you walk in, instant, like, switchback, queue. You run through your line, you grab your stuff, and then they have the cafeteria out there. Everyone sits down, you go get your stuff. But if you go to the further back, like, walk in immediate left, back left corner there, it has a full dessert bar.
Nice.
It's just, like... Here's the counter. Here's all the desserts we have. Take your pick. So, like, they have cakes that are just made out of Oreos.
That's fantastic.
Like, who I was with at the time, like, we got, like this orange creamsicle cake that had, like, I don't even know if it was white chocolate morsels on it, but it just had, like, it's like, 1-tier icing, 2-tier icing, 3-tier, cool, like, fantastic. Lining of icing on, like, on the rest of the surface here makes sense. And then just packed with morsels. It's like... we need to buy insulin on the way home and we'll drop by the pharmacy. And
so you got your diabetes on the side then.
basically, like, what's that guy, like, Liberty Mutual? It's like diabetes. It's that classic meme.
I love Liberty Mutual. If it's not for the little Liberty, 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 it's the emu. I love me some emu.
Fantastic. Oh, boy. I'm so grasping that, like, the winter... do you remember what year that was leveled and turned into the villages?
I was in middle school, so right about when you were born.
So 91-ish area?
Ish.
So it was made for me, is what you're telling me. Like,
yeah, roughly. Roughly.
It was made for my generation of idiots. Because I went to Winter Park High School. And Winter Park High School has this interesting where there's, like, the Winter Park IB kids in terms of, like, what level of income they come from. And then... Do I have this right? Actually, let me make sure I have this right. That's right. And you're pink. That's right. Okay, we're good. I just want to double check mics. So you have, like, upper classy fuckers are going to, like, Mall Millennia by standard. Mm-hmm. Maybe the Altamont for, like, their step down. Correct. And then you have, like, the middle class, higher middle classy stuff where they'll rotate between, like, Altamont, maybe a touch of Millennia, and then, like, Fashion Square.
Okay.
When Fashion Square was, like, respectable. And then you had, like, my area, I would say, where it's, like, pretty much just basic middle class, where, like, Fashion Square is, like, all you got. Altamont Mall is too far for your parents to drive you. And you hear about West Oaks Mall from your gangster friends. Because, like yeah. whoever did OCPS, they created this little loop of Pine Hills to get zoomed in to the Winter Park High School area.
Yes, so, they did.
So they had, like, the 200, 300 building. Mm-hmm. All upstairs was all, like, honors and, like, IB kids. Downstairs... West Side. Basically, just Like, you just get down there, you look around and go, like, I need to get a tan if I'm gonna hang out down here. My shoes need to be like big Adidas fuckers. I need to show my boxers a bit out my asshole. Like,
oh, which is funny because of where you live.
Yeah, like you're in Winter Park of all fucking places, and you're sitting there looking around. I was like, oh, I feel like gang violence is on my doorstep. Like, and like I lived in that neighborhood. Like, do you know where Winter Park High School is?
Of course I do.
Yeah, I lived off of like Ranger and Scarlet.
Okay.
So like where University just becomes a simple road. Like, make a left, look for the white barrel tiles on the left. That was the house I lived in for high school. And it's just like, well, I'm a skateboard away from some dumb shit at this point.
Amen. I moved here in 1987.
Oh, dear.
And we moved into Nob Hill Apartments on the corner of 436 and Aloma.
Oh, we're behind the Steak and Shake now? Those right there?
On the other side, but yes.
Okay. I think so. Like by the church, like across from the church?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. On the same side.
Yeah, the Korean church over there. Like
well, it wasn't then, but yes.
It is now, apparently.
It is. Lots of things have changed since then.
Yeah.
And so I went to Lakemont Elementary.
You can extend this out if you want to keep it close. Like, don't
be
shy about it. Don't be shy about it.
So I went to Lakemont, which was right there. I went to Maitland Middle School. And then we moved. I continued to go to Maitland Middle School, and then they split the districts apart. So
and made Glen Ridge or something like that.
50% of my friends went to Winter Park High School, and 50% went to Edgewater High School.
Yep, that sounds about right.
And I was the 50% that went to Edgewater.
Oh, you went to where my mom went then. My mom went to Edgewater High School, actually. Because my mom was an Army brat up until probably middle school, high school area, I believe. And they settled like here in Central Florida, so she went to Edgewater High School. But my mom was the type to be like out on horseback as opposed to homecoming dance.
Yes. I never went to homecoming at Edgewater.
I went to everything actually. Like
joiner, you are.
Not really. Like I was not on like joining the poppy batch of the populace. It was more like I always had like. First year I went because I did have a girlfriend at the time. And I needed someone to dance with me per se at the time. And then the next year I was like, fuck it. And I just like sort of at that time with a friend that I had learn how to improvise a bit of hip hop sort of dance. So like sophomore year, I just went by myself and I just danced with anyone. Aww. Like by myself or anything like that. Because I got really tired of what my generation called dancing, where it's just, butt to hips and just sway back and forth. Maybe there's a slight adjustment where like your like knee ends up like just rubbing her pussy the whole fucking time like, through the jeans. Like really wondering, like almost hoping she's got underwear on, because denim on pussy does not sound like a good idea.
Oh, not after a while. It is a chafing experience.
I would not be surprised. Denim on penis after a while is not a good idea.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so like, but I went to all of them. I saw them as like the most successful party I could attend, because I had like a former narcotics unit police officer as a stepdad who was going into law.
Wow.
So like I was getting shit from him because I would sell like half my lunch, but I'd roll the bills like a drug dealer would, because like I had no good models. I had no good like proper male role models, because like the unfortunate thing is like my stepdad gave me a lot more lessons than my dad actually has in like my full life, and my dad still giving me some things here and there for sure, but like I didn't have any clear heroes, because mom for a time was in a way trying to put Joe above dad, because Joe had a lot more reputable things until we found out he was a narcissistic, pathologically lying pedophile. So like
that'll do it.
It's like, good job, Mom. Your filter process is shit. God. Oh my God. But like I just basically was like I found myself idolizing criminals, but also like so BET had this series on where they were like American gangsters. And it was like probably a 10-part series where they would just take like these classic African-American gangsters like Rick Ross, Tookie Williams, stuff like that. They do these biopics of them. And it was endlessly fascinating for me for like these stories, but also like these effectively, in my mind, I guess, would be successful businessmen that just found loopholes in the world, but it just how it always typically had to do with crime and drugs. And because hip hop was like getting a huge rise at that time, and so like that was the big pop music at the time was hip hop, which I think is now has died because now 95.3 and 101.9, the two out of the three biggest like local channels, they've just gone to pop hits now in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I grew up with 102 Jams.
Yeah, 102 Jams, and now it's just 102 Jams with pop-ish. It's not hip-hoppy anymore.
There is no more on that I know of. I mean, I have to play my playlist to get my fill.
XL's still good with Johnny in the Morning. That's still the positive.
Who's Johnny?
Johnny's House? Johnny Magic? Oh, wow.
Don't know. Sorry.
You've been here my whole life, and you don't know.
Well, I spent a good amount of time on the radio, middle school and high school, listening to it. And you know, as technology got better, I didn't have to put up with things I didn't want to listen to.
No,
so.
I turned local radio on for the first time in months today, just out of some wild hair, basically.
Yeah, I happened to be driving a friend's car that had the radio on, and I was like, when did 102 Jams become not 102 pop. Jams?
Yeah, I know.
Don't get me wrong, they played some decent songs that I hadn't heard of before, but I was like, oh man, I'm going to miss that.
Well, 102 Jams for a lot of years was just struggling.
Not when, you know, they were in their heyday when I was a kid. They had like the Quiet Storm and the Thunderstorm at night, and it was, you know, the Thunderstorm was like every kind of jammin' hit that was coming out, and dance-wise or other, and then the Quiet Storm was, you know, the soft R&B, put you to sleep, you know, some
solid
old school Luther. I mean, Vandross, not like not Little Luther, Big Luther, as we used to call him.
Solid. Oh, Jesus.
Yes.
No, I think during like my period, at least with 102 Jams, is that like they had Steve Harvey. They had like the Breakfast Club for a while.
I love Steve Harvey.
And then it went to Steve Harvey.
I love Steve Harvey.
I love Steve Harvey as an entertainer. Other things is kind of like maybe a little off their butt. Actually, I think I have a copy of his book where he gives his relationship advice.
Oh yeah.
Which front to back is pretty freaking solid.
Awesome.
It's just unfortunate that like whenever he opens his mouth in a live stream kind of way, it's like, oh no.
See, I haven't been exposed to that. Like, my first exposure to Steve Harvey was his comedy.
Oh, yeah,
and then, of course, the Kings of Comedy is like almost a holy grail of...
No, when I was doing my retail and just listening to everything, basically, I went through, like, his discography on, like, on Apple Music. Disgusting.
Yes.
Like, just disgustingly good.
Yeah, absolutely.
His stand-up. You know, Eddie Murphy's about to make a comeback, actually.
I heard that when he's on SNL in December, he's going to recreate, like, all old school Gumby, Mr. Robinson.
Oh, Jesus.
All of it. And it's all for a launch for his Netflix new comedy special.
Yeah,
correct.
Fingers crossed he doesn't bomb with his Netflix special.
Yeah.
Like, good fingers for him, but, like...
I miss him because, let me tell you...
I miss him being a part of it because, like, he was such a part of, like, my childhood for sure with, like... And imagine yours with the 80s because, like...
Delirious and Raw were things that we talked about for years.
Those were, like, genre-defying in a way. Like, there was a lot... So, like, stand-up comedy, as I understand it, more or less started with Mark Twain.
Okay.
Per se. Because he was the first that actually started going around and doing what was effectively comedic storytelling around America. Just spoken word stuff. And then, I can't even remember his name in the 50s, but he was another iconic figure. And then, he's going to miss me. African-American legend with George, he was like right there alongside George Carlin back in the day.
Richard Pryor?
Richard Pryor, thank you.
Wow.
No, okay, we're about to get another fucking tangent.
Yes, we are, because George Carlin is like a god to me.
George Carlin is fantastic, amazing. And here's my actual funny thing. When it comes to hip-hop and stand-up comedy, the godfathers of them, I did not get, like, an early introduction into them. Like, I wasn't brought up with them, per
I was
se.
raised with them.
Yeah, I was not raised with them. And so now, like, I don't have... Like, if I ever go, like, I always picture, like, that interview. It's like, who are your inspirations? and you're supposed to list off in the comedy where like Richard Pryor and a bunch of others, and then like in hip hop you're supposed to list off like Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac, you know, maybe like other like old schoolers and shit like that. And I'm sitting there going, no,
For real?
like
Wow.
I just didn't get that. Like, so I didn't get into anything alternative outside of country and Z88.3 stuff, which was much better back in the earlier 2000s. It was Christian contemporary music, but like it felt like it had way more going on for it than it does now.
What was the first piece of music you ever bought? Like, it might have been with your allowance, but what was the first piece?
The first piece of music that was bought for me that because I had actually heard like the first 3 or 4 tracks of the album on repeat in 6th grade, and then I finally got my mom to go to Best Buys and get it. Was Good Charlotte's The Young and the Hopeless.
Oh, wow.
And I think that started like at least mental, like depressive, emo-ish sort of thing. Like, I never got the dress or anything. I didn't actually properly discover My Chemical Romance till after I graduated high school. Okay. Because the unfortunate thing is that my mother was only interested in country and then into Christian sort of contemporary stuff. So like it wasn't until like my cousin or other friends were introducing me like Sum 41 and then Ying Yang Twins and then Usher, and then like I was on the bus to school, so then 95.3 was on, and that was the first time I was getting like Usher with Yeah and all those hits at the time. So like it is 6th grade and I'm finally learning about anything. I just heard whispers of 50 Cent driving with my mom in the car. Like, oh, he's a bad guy. So then fast forward to like living there off of Ranger, going into 9th grade center or something like that, waking up or whatever, or in the afternoon watching VH1 and MTV. And that's when I finally hear about, you know, lo and behold, but like anyone else. That's when I got introduced to Nickelback, all good and bad things there. I got introduced to regular pop culture history. Okay. Like, my dad, when I was with him, he would have on like classic rock, but he couldn't name a single thing. Like, I had heard Queen songs. I had no idea who Queen was. I had heard so much good shit when I was with my dad, but he is not someone who is interested in culture in a discussion way. Okay. He's just a character in his own right. It's fun to just sit there and watch him, and he'll just talk to himself while he works, because he works by himself with his paint body work. He's like, Aaron, why'd you fucking do that, man? Like, that's not gonna go there and shit. So like that's my issue, is that like the only good thing I have is that like my dad is the only thing that probably brought me into certain good cultural things, at least that I positively remember, obviously, is that like stand-up comedy I attached to hard because like Christopher Titus's Norman Rockwell Was Bleeding was like instrumental to me because it introduced the dysfunctional family. Not familiar with it. Oh, I think you'd love him. Did he have a show for a short period of time called Titus? Yes. I remember that show vaguely. I think I watched it a couple times. That show, Bruce Springsteen's family loves to death, actually. Okay. That's its own little... Good side note. That's its own little story right there. He's got a special. No, so Christopher, that special introduced me to stand-up in a proper way. Like, stand-up Comedy Central Presents. Those were always good fun. Like, I'd throw that on the TV while I was just, like, doing shit around the house. Did you ever listen to vinyl? No, I never got it. My roommate had a huge vinyl collection, but he couldn't pay rent. Okay. Like, we just go to where, like, my ass... I think by how I was, like, ineffectually raised, I became a hipster without ever, like, proclaiming myself as a hipster, because I've always been able to enjoy all the things that I was mostly reading because it was mine. So, like, the Redwall series by Brian Jack Hughes, I've read probably 90% of that entire series. And they're, like, Harry Potter-sized books. Never heard of it. It's great. Take a bunch of, like, forest animals, make them act like humans, but each... Where the wild things are. But each species, it has a specific set of qualities you'd expect. So, like, mice are usually the protagonists. Okay. But badgers are fucking monstrous. Honey badgers are the shit. Yeah, that's basically what he's portraying. Badgers are always good guys, but they are monstrous things. Like, yes, they are. And it introduces medieval combat, because it's all based on abbeys and castles and magic swords, and and there's always a riddle going on. So like, I got introduced to like, you know, Helm's Deep level shit before I even knew what Lord of the Rings was. Like, I didn't know Lord of the Rings existed in any form until the movies, actually. Wow. And like, my mom actually, funny enough, this is where I think this is the first introduction that my mother was really balanced. We were talking about this earlier, is that my mom did have us like going to church and everything like throughout childhood, just to like good stable pieces.
Right.
But she was not opposed. Like, she read us Harry Potter in the morning before we went to school, like when it was way early. So like a lot of the kids on the block that I grew up with, they were reading at what the librarian would call like a 5th grade level, because like when the book lady, when the librarian, when you're sitting down like in kindergarten, 1st grade, getting the introduction to how to use the library or the media center, she was like, Harry Potter is like sort of a 4th, 5th grade level. And my friend David's sitting there like a year lower than me, so he's like 2nd or 3rd grade. He's like, I've read those twice already. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so, I was very, in my day, it was Dune, which ironically is being remade right now, and I'm super stoked to see how that goes.
I actually, Mike, my friend who was on last week's Pseudo podcast, Dune is actually really political, and there's only like one touch of action, so like turning it into like a movie or a show would be very interesting, apparently.
They are remaking it. Yeah. They're in the process of it right now, which I was quite shocked. I've seen every version of it, and I've read the majority of the books. But I started on that Dune journey when I was 4. And I know the words to the Kyle MacLachlan version quite well. And I use things from that movie on a daily basis that have literally got me through life. It's almost, it could have been a Bible to me for the longest time.
That's fantastic.
It is. So I'm excited to see what happens there, but nothing beats that version for me.
I'm such a I wouldn't even want to say I'm such a language fiend, at least for the English language and the Western English language, that I can go get the book out there now actually. But this book that my mom had just sort of turned into like a second Bible for me. Because it was much easier wisdom to digest than just reading through Proverbs. What was it? It was Life's Instructions for Wisdom, Success, and Happiness.
Okay.
And so the book is just a lot of sayings. Like wisdom, success, and happiness are actually just these sections of the book.
Okay.
And so each section, for probably about 3/4 of the section, will just have all these things to say that actually would involve being happy or being successful or being wise.
Okay.
And it's just like numbered. So it's like, here's like a couple hundred wise sayings or ideas or something like that. And it's got quotes mixed in from Arabian Proverbs to the Bible to Einstein to Theodore Roosevelt to JFK. Like just any worldly quote you could think of is probably in there.
I'm digging that. I might have to look into that.
But like the last third of it, after you get through that whole sort of quotes plus advice pieces, it actually gives... shut up, computer. It doesn't give their names, but it quotes a lot of varying, and it gives their age. So instead of like John Brown, it just says age 94, or age 18, or age 30, and it just gives like what their quote is for that topic.
I like it.
So like I read that like on purpose in school, like head down at like, if you wanted to find me like at lunch, like from middle school backwards, like 8th grade backwards, you guys have to look for me just... And people would just come by and be like, are you okay? And they were like, are you staring at your crotch? I'm just sitting there with I'm sitting with one of the Harry Potter books or something like that. Some thick bit of literature. So like to finish the hipster point from before, everything that I read or became a big fan of was in my own little world. So like... I fell out of loving Harry Potter when the fandom got mad huge, like around the 4th book movie.
Yeah, I did the same thing with New Kids on the Block, I understand.
Oh, the band?
Yeah.
I discovered them like near the end of high school. I was like, this is pretty good. And that's about all the emotions you got out of me on it. It's pretty good. I like this, yeah.
They were like the first boy band.
Yeah, but they're like the healthiest one too, actually. Like, they're still here. They don't have like a rapey tragedy story with their manager.
I haven't followed them in so long because, like you, once they like really exploded, I was like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. That's where some things like I have to will myself to get on the bandwagon, like, and luckily for like at least, have you watched Stranger Things or anything like that? I
watched the first season when it first came out, and I have not followed up on.
Okay, I took forever to get to the first season, but like, or at least me and my girlfriend, because like trying to sync up with a partner is kind of hard. It's like I have to wait for them now. Fuck.
Yeah.
But I had. Okay. So while I was working at my pharmaceutical job doing data entry, I went on vacation for about a week, come back, and I have been dropped from the system. I still got
That's tragic.
But for half of November, me and 2 other people couldn't work. And they basically said, you can either stay here and sit in this side office and do nothing, or you can go home and not get paid.
Wow.
So I got through a lot of Netflix. Like, I finally saw Scarface for the first time because of that.
I want you to say hello to my little friend.
And I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was the dumbest fucking thing ever, actually. Like, I saw it and went like, you know, this is the kind of movie that my dad loves and would love because it's got that 80s vibe. It's just machismo stupid, like, to a stupid level. All I see is like, this is a guy that just calls a lot of bluffs, is over-aggressive, and gets lucky for 5 years and then dies.
Well, my philosophy on that is definitely Rocky. I'm like, what is it? Rocky 5,000 that just happened?
Yeah. 5 3/4. Like, he's about to have another one.
They just changed it to Creed, and now they're on to the third one with that, too.
You see, Michael B. Jordan actually thought he could, like, take a fight with a real, like, boxer. And, like...
Poor guy.
He named a guy, and the guy, like, threw it back. He's like, yeah, we'll see about that. Like, and it's a guy that's been in the game for, like, 20 years.
Yeah, don't get your pretty face hurt, son. The pattern is full.
You look good on film. You won't look good bloodied. Like, let's...
Speaking of the Ghost Rider, I'm super stoked to see Top Gun coming back at it, too.
What? They're about to reboot that?
Didn't know?
I finally saw... I think I did, but I finally saw Top Gun for the first time in the last year or so. This is how deprived I am.
Oh, my God.
This is what happens when your parents divorce
like
and your dad in his infinite wisdom gives full custody to your mom.
Okay.
Like, it's like, I wish you had more faith in yourself, Dad, but there's a lot more culture I should have had.
Yeah.
And it would have been had because, like...
Yeah.
I'd have been, like, the only reason I, like, am on the same team of people of Steven Seagal being fantastically horrible acting, but fantastic for, like, good karate in, like, movies, is because of my father. Like,
oh, my goodness.
Like, my dad was, like, 80. He wasn't even a nerd. He was just loved the action shit. So, like, my mom told me how he would get up in the morning in the 80s before I was born in 91 and just watch, like, the animated G.I. Joe and He-Man and shit like that.
Totally.
I was like, get the fuck out of here. That's cool.
Yeah. My mother is, to the day she dies, a huge Chuck Norris fan. Like, it,
yeah. Texas Rangers. I remember that now, yeah.
Well, that's what he does now, but, like, back in the day, oh, my good Lord.
Movies and shit like that?
Oh, my God. There's so many.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's what... Ron White. That's the one stand-up
The
comic.
comedian? He's funny. He's funny.
We got, like... So stand-up comedy blew up for me, I would say 7th grade-ish, with the introduction of Blue Collar Comedy Tour when it first came out. And so, like, my dad's side of the family... If I actually do this right, I think my dad's side of the family has introduced me to every positive thing ever, and my mom's side of the family makes good food. Or, like, neutrally good food. Actually, I realized, so, like, because, like, my dad's side, they make Syrian food, which is delicious. Like,
nice.
Kubi, which is basically, like, raw lamb. We do it with beef instead. So, like, you got to keep it chilled. Shut the fuck up. God.
Don't tell me what to do.
Grape leaves. Oh, my God. Who is bothering me? Okay. That's a group chat. I need to silence my fucking phone. Fuck you. But, like, so, but they do all that. So, like, both sides make great fucking food. Shut the fuck up. How do I silent you? There you are. God. So, like, both sides of my family, like, during the holidays, I historically have rotated between 2 to 3 places.
Okay.
I'll go to mom's side, dad's side, and then then there'll be some amount of, like, if I'm dating, I'll go to the girlfriend's side, or both of hers or something like that. Or I'll go to, like, a friend's side and go to Pine Hills with my friend Kevin, where his family was, and have, like, the best pecan pie fucking ever. I was
nice.
Like, it's worth the trip, man.
Absolutely.
And I was driving, like, my, like, Chevy, like my 98 Chevy Blazer, so I'm like, hide all the electronics, but we should be good. Like, so, like, but I realized, actually, so what my mom's side of the family does with their beef, with their steak, or at least, like, because they'll get a big London broil, and they'll just slice it up, grab your sliver, and you're good to go.
Okay. But
they have this marination process that involves, like, wine, and it makes it sour.
Okay.
And I don't like it. Because, like,
I can accept that.
I just started making my own steak, like, in the last year, which is just, like, you know, it's like butter and adobo. Just call it even. And I loved it. And then I have one of their line of bros. I'm like, something's wrong here. It's like medium. It's like medium. It's fine in that regard. I was like, this taste is off. And then at the last family gathering, I was like, hey, what do y'all do with marinating this thing? Or what do y'all put it in? And then they discuss it. They go all over it. It's Aunt Chickie's, or late Aunt Chickie or whatnot. She had this recipe. It's delicious. And I'm just sitting there. And Melanie's just looking at me going like, we now know why it's disgusting. We now know why you don't like it. Because it's just, think of like your steak and now make it sour.
That's...
With no, like, none of that salt.
That sounds rough.
None of that, like, it's just, like, I have a kind of gall because I'm realizing more and more how much my dad's side is in me, because that's the side of the family I'm realizing that I just naturally identify with. Like, I hung out with my uncle for several weekends in a row and made this hatchet and made that pick knife over there and just sort of, like...
Nice.
You know, start recognizing how attuned I am and how much more of a Solomon I am than a McGehee. And I'm sitting there going like, you know, I think I'm about 2 more patient points away from just bringing my own porterhouse. Like, I need to use the stove for what? I need about 5 minutes. And just already have the thing like room temp, soaked in butter and adobo, just... Aren't you going to have ours? No.
The best steak I ever had that someone else made me outside of a restaurant, I was actually shocked when I was like, oh my God, what did you marinate this in?
Yeah.
Just salt and pepper. That was it.
Yeah.
He's like, you do it right, the meat does the rest. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. No. Because I'll use Laurie's here and there for just like different flavorings or whatnot for sure. But but the adobo kicks. The adobo does kick well.
I love adobo.
Yeah.
You can put it on everything.
Basically. Oh my gosh. Gotta love it. Oh boy.
So my first experience with stand-up comedy, I was 4 years old, and it was George Carlin.
Oh my gosh.
It was actually...
This is how you go to Sailor Mouth early. Like.
Correct. It was on what was called the Big 6 tape, because my sister had just turned 6, and we're only 19 months apart. Uh-huh. And the very beginning of the tape, pretty sure it was an accident that was on there, but it was the Toledo window box stint. If you're not familiar with that, George Carlin was trying to figure out why marijuana strands were called different things. Uh-huh. He didn't understand why there were strands called Alaskan Thunderfuck he's like, why can't you just call it like where it came from, like Toledo window box? And exactly. So even when I grew up and was able to choose my own comedy, I was like, oh, George Carlin, I have to hear more of this.
Oh, yeah.
And when I asked about the albums, we had a lot of comedy albums. We had had Richard Pryor, we had George Carlin, old school SNL people, like old school Blues Brothers.
Adam Sandler, stuff like that. Or
way before his time.
So like Belushi then? Or
yes,
Candy?
Belushi.
Did Candy ever do stand-up?
Yes. Okay. And Steve Martin, for sure.
Yeah.
I have the same birthday as Gilda Radner, so she was very big in my life for a very long time. I even did a book report about her in middle school that made me like run out of the room crying about. It was intense.
Like you just loved it that much. Like
yeah, very much so.
Solid.
Yeah. I mean, to this day, I respect everything she did. Gene Wilder, I mean, come on, who doesn't love him as Willy Wonka?
I need to see Blazing Saddles.
Yes, for sure.
I still need to see that.
Yeah, you gotta like renew that stuff in your head sometimes, man. Keep it fresh.
Here's the worst part, real quick.
Sure.
Is that while I'm listing like these giant cultural gaps in my upbringing, believe it or not, my girlfriend is infinitely worse. Like, infinitely worse. Like, she had a worse disconnection with music because she was doing ballet, so all she has is like classic music. So like she loves Frank, but she has all this classical music from ballet.
Right.
And then she didn't get back, and then she didn't get back to pop stuff till probably high school as well, or something like that. So I was like, Jesus, girl.
My first cassette tape that I purchased with my choice of money. I even had to have my sister say the name of it because it had hell in the title, and I didn't want to.
You're a sweet little Christian girl at the time.
At the I mean,
was she the rebellious one then? Was she the first rebellious one? Or?
No, I was the first rebellious one, and then I got better, and she got worse, and then now we take turns going back and forth on who gets to be better or worse. Exactly right. But my first cassette tape was Run DMC, Highway to Hell.
Okay.
Yep, that paved the way for many, many wonderful things.
Oh my gosh.
It was definitely more the Run DMC than the Aerosmith aspect of it. So I got on hip hop and rap as soon as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And growing up in rural town, Indiana, it was definitely kind of hard to come across.
What drew you to it? What do you think drew you to it?
I loved it.
Just
the funk, the beat, like it sings to me. Like
the lyrics or anything like that really catch you?
Totally. The beat has a lot to do with it. I definitely like bass.
Yeah,
I always
sound.
have. Very much so.
Yeah,
very much
so. You were raised on, I bet.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, in Indiana, it's nothing but country back in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not labeled as country, then it's because there's a banjo involved, and it's called bluegrass. So.
Okay.
Those are the different variations.
Insert banjo must be blue with some grass.
So I was very much on the hip-hop urban path. And then when we moved to Florida in 87, that definitely just got kicked into high gear.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Florida's late for everything, but Florida does have sort of like a lot of... There's been a couple in the past like 15 years that have actually come out of Florida, between like T-Pain, Flo Rida.
Well, my first experience when I moved to Florida was definitely on the illicit track, and this is back before parental advisories were even listed on cassette tapes.
Oh dear.
And it was, I grew up with like Eazy-E and Too Short, man. Yeah. So I can't even say something. I still remember it. I can recite it.
Have you heard Tom Segura go the fuck off on hip hop?
No.
Tom Segura, the comic, stand-up comic?
No.
You might appreciate him. He's a very dry delivery.
Like Stephen Wright style?
I couldn't say for Stephen Wright. I've just been introduced to George Burns recently, so I'm running through George right now, or at least whatever I can find, which is very, very little on YouTube, honestly. But yeah. He's fantastic.
YouTube didn't exist when he was in his prime, so that's understandable.
What an unfortunate set of circumstances.
He was a genius. He was.
Yeah.
I've engraved many a smart, wonderful thing that he said. Mm-hmm. Yes. Definitely up there. I mean, it all usually was a liquor reference of some sort. Like, yeah. He's like, it only takes one drink to get you drunk. I've never been able to figure out if it's the 13th or 14th. George Burns.
Oh, jeez. What was the interview I just saw where it's like, yeah, George knows all these lines. He'll rattle this off. George, did you take a bath today? Why, is one missing?
I like it.
Oh, yeah. But no, yeah, Tom has a huge thing for, like, hip-hop. So, like, when... I've never heard of Too Short. I thought he was a more recent rapper from, like, the Lil Wayne era. And it's like, no, he's a really old school rapper, actually, around Eazy-E's time before, rest in peace. I was like, all right, well, shit, like, again, we just go back to, like, I didn't hear, so, like, were you there when, like, Nas, like, broke the scene? When Nas came out back in, like, the 90s, I believe?
He wasn't, like, a big thing, but yeah.
Okay, so that's probably the generation. That's probably the generation, like, right after.
That was way later.
Way later?
Way later.
I'm just woefully ignorant over here.
When I say Big Luther and Little Luther was from 2 Live Crew.
Okay.
Does that name ring a bell?
No, it doesn't, man. We are on 2 different planets right now, man. Like,
I'm a child of the 70s.
I was born 91, so like I can say I'm a 90s baby. But it's really sad when I go look at documentaries like Netflix had a series where it's like the 90s, and it went by like each year or something like that. And it just really focused on one thing or another. So either focused on like the music with like Nirvana and all that.
Love Nirvana.
Yeah. And so like I'm sitting there going like just very sadly looking at like the first 10 years of my life and going, I was born there, but my ability to participate in what like defined that decade is massively delayed.
Me too. It's also the 90s were the beginning of some extensive drug use for myself. So.
Do you just not remember a lot of it then?
Oh, I remember a lot of it. There are parts I don't remember, yes.
But most of it you do. Like, good news. Like,
correct.
Take this forward. So
I love the 90s.
So then are you the crazy aunt in the family? Like, do you have nieces and nephews or whatnot? Or
I have a niece, yes.
Okay. So you get to corrupt her, or is her mom going to take care of that too?
No, this is the one I got to corrupt. My goddaughter, who
okay.
is... You know, the best kind of family is definitely not by blood.
The one you pick.
Very much so.
The best family is the one you pick.
Yeah, she's literally my pride and joy.
Mm.
If I were to ever have a kid, it would be just like her. So,
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, she's been in my life since the day she came home from the hospital. One of the reasons she was tattooed was because she was in NICU for a good amount of time. Ooh. She was born 2 months premature, and we weren't even sure if she was going to
make it.
Yeah, right.
Goodness.
And now she's 14, and she just went to homecoming, and she's a wonderful, very
that's great.
well-adjusted child.
But I love this because now you can look at it like, you're not aging well over here. Like,
she has consistently asked me, like, where's the progression pictures? Yeah. I'm like, it doesn't work that way, dear.
That costs money that you don't have.
That's all I need is her face all the way up my arm.
Yeah, it's like, what, am I going to sacrifice my whole forearm for you?
Her father did. Her father, her name is all the way.
Oh, Jesus. Gosh, what a spoiled only child. I would know nothing about that. I would know absolutely nothing about that.
I'm sure.
I got to be an only child for the first... How old are you when it's about 8th grade, 7th grade?
7th, 8th grade
10,
would
11,
be...
12, 13 maybe?
12-ish, 13-ish, yeah.
So I was an only child for about 13 years, and then I was a middle child for about 5 years. And then I'm an only child again.
Wow.
Yeah. That was my life.
Yeah,
that was very interesting.
I've always been the youngest.
The funny thing is that when I was a middle child, I was still, like, the very clear, like, adult child out of all of them. Like, so, like, we were helping my stepdad, like, sort out his, like, old house that he lived in. We, like, did the roof on it, cleaned the fucking house out where he had renters in and shit.
Okay.
And someone decided it was a good idea to leave, like, his revolver somewhere in the house. And, like, I see it, and I'd already had enough interaction with guns as a child, and also my dad's with, like, you know, my dad's 44 that he used to have, so, like, Clint Eastwood shit, to shoot and skeet, to BB guns, to all that. So I, like, see it, I go over, and, like, mess with it, cock it, uncock it, just, okay. I go back to whatever. And apparently his son, mind you, like, Joe had, like, a police background.
Okay.
So it's like, well, your education for your son here's a little lacking. Apparently his son, Joey, went over, picks it up, and cocks it, but doesn't know how to uncock it and just puts it down and walks away. And so, like, Joe comes out and finds it, starts, like, going the fuck off on it, and is like, I bet it was Aaron or some shit. My mom's like, no, he knows how to deal with this. They, like, asked me, he was like, yeah, I messed with it, I put it back. He's like, oh, and then Joey finally fesses up. And I was like, yeah, the fuck.
Told you.
Yeah. And I fucked with him once, actually, with Joey, because, like, he made a bet that I couldn't get access to his gym locker when I'd learned the trick of just, like, kicking the locker or whatever.
Nice.
So you could just, like, you know, and then just relock it. And so he's like, I bet you fucking can't do that or something like that. He called bullshit on me, like, Tuesday on the way home. And I was like, okay. Deal is sealed. Because I figured out what period he was at, and it was right after mine. So I was like, cool. Go in the locker, go in there. And I had, like, a female teacher, so no one was really going to watch me or anything like that.
Right.
So I just, like, go over, take the jersey stuff, you know, throw it in my bag, lock up. I get to the bus, and I just, like, go over to, like, Joey or whoever it might have been Joey or the kid, one of his idiot friends. And I was like, oh, by the way, here you go. And he's like, you're the asshole that stole my shit. I was like, you told me I couldn't do it. It's like, we had to write all period because of you, because they literally, like, lined everyone up. I was like, who stole his shit? And no one had in the entire room. And we get home, and Joey's trying to, like, play victim or whatever, and my mom just chuckles, like, don't challenge him. If he says he can do it, don't fucking do it. And his dad, Joe's trying to get all pissed. And he's like, don't fucking do that shit. That's horrible. You're stealing or what. I was like, he challenged me. Get the fuck off my dick. Like,
yeah, exactly. Two things I've realized that I do things out of spite. Like, tell me I can't do something, and I have to do it now. It's like, I'm sorry, now I have to.
Yeah.
You told me I can't, so guess what?
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
I think it's a good thing that no one challenged me saying that I couldn't become like a Navy SEAL or a Marine because I'd be dead by now or something like that. Like, I've heard those stories where, like, a top-level SEAL or something like that became one because someone bet he could, like, just said it, that he couldn't do it. And he's like, top of my unit. I run shit. I killed Bin Laden. Go fuck yourself. Like,
you know, like, I want to quote a line from Breakfast Club right now, but...
Do it. Do it.
Like, oh, no. I want to be an Air Force Ranger.
Oh, God.
Fly through the skies and face the danger.
So I love Breakfast Club. And I was up at my dad's a few weekends ago, and he just leaves the TV running, which is fantastic because it's like going back to the 90s when it was just TV, because my dad has no internet.
Okay.
Like, it's fantastic. And when you're up there where he's at, it's like fucking... There's no signal, and I love it. I just leave my phone because it doesn't fucking work anyway, and I stare at the forest and wish I had a bow and arrow to shoot at targets or something like that.
Nice.
And so Friday night, I get there and we start watching Billy the Kid.
Okay.
Like whatever that movie.
Which version?
Like the actual original that has the Brit taking in all the boys.
The black and white one?
No, the color one. I forget what it's originally called.
You say the original.
No. I am so young.
I know.
That I don't know what the original TCM is. Okay, get the fuck off my dick. God.
That's awesome.
I feel like I should be wearing a diaper right now for pinky, man. Like,
I think I'm closer to the diaper age than you are right now in the other way.
By age and biological ability, yeah. Like, give it 5 years and I'll be gifting you fucking, God, what's that adult diaper brand?
Depends.
It's like...
I always said that I wanted to die before Depends happened, but the closer you get, you're like, well,
I mean, like, I'm okay.
Still kind of healthy.
I could warm myself up. Oh, that's another joke. I could warm myself up with a shit or a piss right about now. Winter doesn't scare me anymore.
No, I totally just went Steve Martin with that one.
Okay, so
use the restroom.
Whatever the name of the movie is that had like I cannot remember names. Has the wrestler, the jock from Breakfast Club as Billy the Kid, and it has from 2.5 Men.
Emilio Estevez.
Is that his name? Emilio Estevez plays it?
Yes.
Okay. And then it has
Charlie Sheen
as the other leader.
So they're brothers.
Yeah, they're brothers. Well, not actual brothers. Like they're not actual brothers in this. They're just like a group of kids that are taken on by the British man that lives in the area, and he gets murdered, and now they just... And then Billy the Kid basically prompts him into a murder spree.
I didn't know they were in a movie together.
Yeah, like...
Interesting.
And that's where, like, Billy the Kid comes from for, like, my dad's reference, basically.
Okay.
Because, like, Billy the Kid just shoots everything.
Well, yes.
Like... So, like, that's the first time I saw the character that was Billy the Kid. And it was Emilio Estevez, as would be, who is the wrestler in the Breakfast Club. And I sat there watching and going, there's no way this guy becomes the main character. And then he becomes the main character. I'm like, I hate this. Because, like, his character in the Breakfast Club was such a pissant. And now he's...
Different movie.
It is a different movie. But, like, there's a juxtaposition, and it bothered me. I was like, you're supposed to be with the binky crying about your dad, but now you're just a psychopath killing everything.
This is how people get stuck in one kind of character.
Well, it's like Harrison Ford problems after Star Wars and shit.
Yeah, but Harrison Ford went on to do so many things. Yeah, so many things.
I got... This is where I really appreciated VH1 for giving me all of the pop culture from, like, the 70s forward. Like, that's so 70s and shit. Like, that's the best education I got.
Okay.
For what I had. Okay? Like, this conversation is truly showing how inept it was. But otherwise, it would be more inept. Okay? Like... break. I need your pity. I don't need your laughs right now. But, like, I got, like, and my dad gave me so fucking much fun when I think about it. So, like, it highlighted, VH1, I think, highlighted that point in The Fugitive where it's, like, one of the best lines that Tommy Lee Jones ever gives. where like Harrison Ford and him are like face to face in the sewer or something like that. And he's like, I didn't do it. And Tommy Lee's like, I don't care.
Yep.
It's like, shit.
Yep. It's a good movie.
What was it? What else did Dad give me? U.S. Marshals, where Tommy Lee starts with the chicken suit.
I vaguely remember that one.
What else? All Steven Seagal shit. Like the Navy ship where he just takes them all out while they're on the sub or the Navy ship.
I can honestly say I don't think there's a Steven Seagal movie I haven't seen. So
nice. Nice. Oh jeez. See, yeah. VH1's the only sort of VH1's all I got basically for like late middle school and early high school to like try to get me up to date on references and on who anyone was. Like, so you know the original voice actor for Zazu in Lion King, not John Oliver, but Gilbert Gottfried.
Yes.
I maybe had a touch of introduction to him with Hollywood Squares.
I can't stand him. He drives me insane. That voice, it just
Well, I got a proper introduction to him and his comedy style with him being a frequent on That's So. It's like I'll go play with your erector set. In that reference game. So like that was the reason I got a decent introduction to much of anything outside of just hearing people making references. Like, so you remember when Robin Williams did one of his last stand-up comedy routines where it was like the metal spires in the back and like the one eye above. It was like Robin Williams on Broadway. It was like early 2000s or something. And I literally remember watching that several times and going back and watching it years later and getting more and more references. Like, I didn't even know who the fuck Tanya Harding was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch your kneecaps.
Yeah, basically. Like, like 5 years later, I finally get like, oh, here's the background for Tanya Harding. Like, right around like probably when Margot Robbie did the biopic of her. I was like, oh, okay.
I remember that well.
Now. Yeah.
I remember it well.
Or he had like a high profile lawyer reference. And I was like, who? And I found out like, oh, that's the lawyer that helped out OJ.
Yeah, the only reason the Kardashians are famous.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, basically. Did you ever see Joe Rogan? So you've just caught into Joe Rogan's comedy, right?
I have seen one special.
Is it the one that has him with the Kim Kardashian impression at the end?
No, not at all. It was definitely much older. It was 80s or 90s.
Was he in Detroit?
I have no idea what city he was in. I can only tell because the copy. That's how I know how old it was.
The copy?
Yeah, because we were watching it on something that was streaming, and the copy was like, oh, that was totally
grainy
VHS. Yeah.
Was he like really in a colorful shirt with hair?
No, he had a hat on.
He had a hat on?
It looked like he was filming it in like a coffee shop. It was somewhat narrow.
Okay, not sure then. Not sure. Because I'm not like the biggest. I'm not an incredible Joe Rogan fan. I'm a solid Joe Rogan comedy fan. But I think I've caught all of his specials since like the early 2000s when he had like this Mountain Man cover deal where he did the special in Detroit. Shh, you're okay. I knew I should have muted the desktop audio on this broadcast. I think I have like random audio spikes for whoever listens to this shit.
It all sounds different on the other side.
So are you like starting to explore more comedy now, or you just found Joe Rogan and just like went with it for there?
It was a recommendation from a friend.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, "You haven't heard of that? We have to watch it," and we did.
Nice. So did you see any of the recent Dave Chappelle stuff? I
love Dave Chappelle, and the answer is yes. I saw him live. Well, not live. I mean, in person at UCF before his stint away. When he was standing on the stage chain smoking when smoking wasn't even allowed in that auditorium.
Oh, my man.
We were all like, ooh, he's going to get in trouble. But we had so much fun, and he is so unbelievably amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean...
Even his special, like, the recorded stuff just feels so in person because of just his, like...
I love him.
He's nailed that casual conversation style so well that you're almost believing, like, especially as someone who understands how stand-up comedy is developed and matures and is created, you're kind of watching him going like, I swear he actually is coming up with this right now.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like that was him and Cat Williams. I love Cat Williams.
Well, Cat Williams for me only had like the Pimp Chronicles Part 2 was like peak, and then after that, like I was following American Hustle and a few others, and it never hit as hard again.
I love him.
I love him personality wise for sure. Eddie Griffin. Eddie Griffin's had one special in the past few years.
Love him.
That was fantastic, and I wish he had more new material.
The very first time he ever busted out with the Michael Jackson stuff, it was like, oh my God, Eddie Griffin. You know,
Eddie Griffin can do fuck though, man.
He can do the voice. He can do the dance. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah, I wish he did more stand up, man.
Agreed.
I think he's just hanging out though right now. He's like, I don't need to make more money because then I'm making my ex-wives more money.
Amen to that.
Did you catch Mitch Hedberg?
Who?
Mitch Hedberg?
Not ringing a bell.
Oh God, he's a goddamn legend.
Okay.
He was
Lenny Bruce is a legend.
That's probably who I was thinking of before, who was around the 50s or something like that, 50s, 60s.
Probably Lenny Bruce.
Bruce, yeah. Because he kind of had an I don't give a fuck attitude.
What about Jim Jeffries? He's more current.
The Australian, yeah.
Yeah.
He's more commercial now.
Love him.
He's great. He's an idiot.
Yeah, totally.
He's an idiot, but it's kind of fantastic.
It is.
Because I remember, I think it was his final story on one of his recent specials where he like has a story where he's like going to like this celebrity party and he's performing and Al Pacino's there and stuff.
That was two back, but yes.
Yeah, and Eddie Murphy's there or whatnot.
Yes.
It's like, hey, big fan. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Jim Jeffries is good funny. But, like, his image is that he's an idiot. It's kind of like, what's his name?
He prides himself on being the comedian that brought cunt back.
Because it's such a English-Australian culture word. America still has
It's a word, but some people view it as, like,
the worst.
More harsh than any other variation of it.
It's the worst thing to call a woman.
Nah, there's worse things to call a woman.
What, like...
No, it's up there. Don't get me wrong.
What about unmarried? like single in your 40s. Let's try that one.
No, it's definitely up there, and they're it's a word that people feel very strongly about, no matter which angle they come to.
I think he's more than welcome to try to pride himself on it, but I think Louis C.K. did so much for that word with some of his other...
The one thing I can appreciate about Louis C.K. is when the Me Too movement came to him, he was like, yep, I did it.
Yeah, but like Dave has also done a fantastic job of breaking that down.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one got like, hey, I'm gonna do this, and then they stay in the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but he has power over them. It's like, that's their choice to let him have power over them. Like, it's sort of like, do you choose to be free people or not? It's sort of like the call at this point. So, like, did you see this? It was a leak, unfortunately, but did you see that he actually was like caught? He was he had a set that was recorded at Gotham or something like that. Louis C.K.
No
He's
idea.
gotten back to trying to get work or whatnot. So if he has a special in the next year, I will not be surprised. But he was working on material and someone put out a recording of it on YouTube, and it's classic Louis.
Is it?
Like right from the get-go. Like,
there's some people I really want to see emerge again, and there's
Yeah.
some people that I hope stay back in the closet that they fell into.
Oh.
Like, I really want to see something from Kevin Spacey very soon. I need some Spacey.
Because, his thing dropped out. Like the whole
I know, House of Cards.
It dropped. Well, House of Cards dropped and died and everything. Yeah, which was unfortunate for the series. But like his actual charge.
Oh, I know. I'm aware.
It's gone.
I know.
And I'm sitting there going like,
right.
Can we victim blame now?
Right.
Can we victim blame this situation because like an entire like one of the biggest dramas of our time got crashed because of he said she said, and Kevin like did his due diligence of like apologizing or whatnot, but like the entire Me Too movement in its like worst form just welcome to like no jurisprudence and the mob gets to like take control.
What is that song that they just redid so they could put it out for holiday time that they took off the radio?
It's cold outside, baby. It's cold outside.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I know of some people who go the fuck off on that because they think it's a rapey song. And then someone actually like did an analysis of it based on actual 50s culture, or at least the generation it's in. And it's like, no, this is her trying to get some, but having to utilize the proper verbiage to get there.
That's what I'm saying. I think people just like read way too much into a lot of things and take it really, really far.
Well,
you know?
it's a part of the virtue signaling thing. It's like I'm going to find whatever horrible thing. I'm going to virtue signal myself and saying that it's horrible and disgusting or whatnot.
Right.
And now I feel better about myself and I'll go masturbate to my likes.
Right.
Like,
you know, like, especially being a child of the 70s and being, you know, raised in Indiana until
Yeehaw.
the late 80s. Oh,
And corn.
actually, was a TV show. Yeah.
Oh, God.
It was literally called
I'm getting
Yeehaw.
flashbacks of, like, Cowboy Bebop right now.
And just so you know, we only had 3 channels. 3 channels. And the streaming thing never existed. We couldn't even
no.
get cable because there was
You had
no signal to
you
get.
had just antenna.
We had rabbit ears.
Yeah.
We couldn't even get MTV until we moved to Florida.
And I'm sitting there going, like, was that really an upgrade, though? Like, I have
Yes.
friends that were here in Florida. They'd moved back to Indiana.
MTV is where I fell in love with Jon Stewart, who I will
wait.
say right now, Jon Stewart for president, like, I would vote for him.
He would not take that
So,
job.
I know he wouldn't, but I'm just saying, I grew up with him. Politically, I agree with everything that comes out of his mouth, and I wish he was in a bigger platform than he is right now.
I did you see where him and Dave Chappelle, like, teamed up for a while?
No, but after I leave here, I will watch that.
there's an interview.
I will
where,
watch it.
There's an interview, like a CNN interview, where it's Dave Chappelle and Jon Stewart. And
That sounds amazing.
what I think, so I can't say what you say in terms of, like, agreeing with everything, because I can't say that accurately and, like, know that what I'm saying is going to be true. Or, like, someone's going to bring us, do you agree with this? I'm like, actually, I don't. You're a liar.
Go fuck yourself. But I've always appreciated, like when he had the Rachel Maddow interview years ago, is that when John is given a proper long form conversation, there's something about how incredibly rational and intelligent his discussion is.
Absolutely.
That you're just kind of sitting there by the end of it going like, there's some things I don't agree with, but I can't help but just respect your ability to conversate.
Correct.
And discuss the issue in a full manner.
Absolutely.
As opposed to everything that's sort of still trying to survive on mainstream medias.
And as far as like everything around him that came from him, like Stephen Colbert, Samantha Bee, John Oliver, I follow them all because I just pray I'm going to get a glimpse of Jon Stewart on something, you know?
Basically.
Because he does make cameos on a regular, you know?
But,
and
like, I think the thing is that he did his one big thing with
Daily Show.
With the Daily Show, and that was like, and the unfortunate thing is that someone did identify that was what my generation identified as like their political job for the day, is like watch that show, make their tweets, and then go back to their lives.
Right.
When we're still waiting for like anyone to have the kind of action that like Hong Kong's having right now, of actually like physically doing anything.
Well,
and actually having movements that are corrupted, like Black Lives Matter apparently is.
I'll tell you what though, I mean the amount of protests that we've seen lately has definitely, you can only say, like, has not been at this level since the 60s and 70s when people were protesting the war.
Talking, like,
for sure.
So, well, like, are we talking like protests like across this country?
Yes, because we protest for everything now.
Yeah, that's the funny thing.
And the fact that we even have to is disturbing.
Well, it's. I feel like there's a giant. Can never find the right words. There's a point where it's been diluted, because we're protesting about so many things, and none of them are core. None of them are a proper analysis. So, like the one I feel that I can drive really well on is sort of the gun debate.
Okay.
And while I do have the sort of the reasonable thing is like you don't exactly need a military level gun. Because I actually did a paper on. I was going to be a part of a debate for it, but I didn't get called up for it because I would have murdered the counter at the time for theatrics as well as the stats that I pulled. There's plenty of stats that when you outlaw them entirely, gun violence rises massively, and so does crime. Australia has good stats on that. It took them about almost 20 years before they had a mass shooting when they got down to just handguns for public. But, like, for the argument of gun availability in tandem with the mass shootings, what I've been able to sort of glean and understand out of listening to listening to Jordan Peterson and listening to sort of what is being identified as like the main, at least what I feel is really causing the gun violence and the mass shooting stuff has nothing to do with the Muslim thing or terrorism. It has to do with at least this modern age of Western culture. It has to do with sort of the death of God and like classic ideas of religion. And instead of having sort of like the Russian Revolution and communism and Nazism, we were able to perpetuate the faith through the 20th century, but we're at a point where a lot of, at least my generation and on, are finding it incredibly hard because of how far along science is to go into a faith-based situation unless you're okay with the very soft versions of congregations that exist right now. So you have a lot of very soft idea of the church, and they have their contemporary music and they have their well-wishing ideas, but they're not speaking hard truths, and they're not really like attacking things properly. And really, like, I have a problem when your church gets so big, but I'm not made aware of the impact the church is having on like important, not even like getting involved in local government, but like being a part of truth. Like, one of the principles that I got out of Steve Brown is that as a Christian, you should be seeking truth, like math truth, like science truth. Like, you should be seeking truth, period. And unfortunately, there's a certain point where it just becomes a tranquilizer. Like, the religion that you're in becomes a tranquilizer to your life, or some means of vilifying or rectifying or making yourself feel good about how you live your life. Like, it's a check mark on your freaking week. And the church is just taking advantage of people that want to have a religious experience and providing that, but it doesn't actually build towards anything. And so a lot of what I think is the Christian populace right now is not truly hardcore, not Paul hardcore, not truth-seeking hardcore, and a lot of the younger generation just can't take it seriously, so they end up becoming very nihilistic. They get the modern mindsets that just make everything meaningless, and the lack of father figures and the lack of like idealizing father figures and the wise king as opposed to the tyrannical king and this whole patriarchy thing that's happening. You end up with a lot of disenfranchised kids. You want to blame bullying, but bullying's done more good than bad, actually, in my opinion. There's bullying that can have horrible things, but most of these kids, all these young men that have gone off and out of these mass shootings, the one thing they have in common is that they don't actually have a father figure. So, like, bullying can have horrible things, but there's a lot of good stories where people who have bullying go through that bullshit, and then they rise above. Like, the classic human and nature story is that if you don't die from it, it makes you stronger. So
my explanation is way more basic than that.
With the mass shooting gun violence thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, what's yours?
Well, back in the day before we had internet and,
Mm-hmm. A plethora of knowledge available?
The kind of communication that we have now.
Yeah.
No matter what town you were in, you knew where the crazy guy lived.
Yeah.
Every town's got a crazy guy.
Yeah.
And now, thanks to the internet and communication, all them crazies know each other.
Yeah.
And they fuel their own fire.
Yeah.
And that's simple.
I think that goes into like the flat earthers and stuff like that.
Oh yeah?
With the echo chambers and stuff. How
so?
So, your idea is while as simple as very true, what the internet is providing and what it doesn't provide is that you could have the community discourse, like have the town center,
okay,
where everyone would come and discuss what's going on in the community, everything. The internet could provide that, like Twitter could be that. But when you have algorithms and your choice of follows and your forums and websites you go to, all you have are your little bubbles of confirmation bias. And
just like those people that are completely off the grid that don't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Or computer.
Yeah.
Or stream anything.
Yeah, they know each other.
Everybody's got their own bubble in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think that's normal to have your own little circles and stuff like that. But the amount of distance between the bubbles, it was actually it was actually portrayed by this data analyst. He, during the 2016 election for Trump-Hillary, he actually was able to grab or figure out how to create a visual 3D image of the two political pieces of Twitter, and they were like these two just amoeba just way far away from each other. And it was like, because like all the Hillary supporters were like mad surprised that she like didn't win, or there was like this many people supporting Trump. Meanwhile, like, because I listened to enough Joe Rogan, all the stand-up comics that travel this country, travel to like the heartland and everything, and actually see most of the population, they knew Trump was gonna win. They knew. Like, it's just, it was just like, New York, maybe Florida, Ohio maybe, and like California for Hillary. Everything else was going to be pretty red. And so, like, the echo chamber thing just leads to the crazies getting together, being flat earthers, or, getting very anarchistic or something like that. But all of these examples, all these people that have actually gone out and become isolated killers and, shooting up movie theaters and schools and stuff, they're the crazy people that don't get any outreach or don't get any connection, and they probably just stay on the internet and get nothing but the negativity of it.
Right.
So, like, what was it? Bo Burnham had, like, 8th Grade, the movie. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
It shows, like, modern 8th grade, and it's heartbreaking.
I saw the PSA that they did after Sandy Hook, and that made me cry. It was really sad.
The PSA for Sandy Hook?
Yeah. It was inspired after those tragic events, and and Parkland as well.
Yeah.
It was very recent, and I mean, it was on Channel 6 just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was very disturbing. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
I know of Parkland and stuff, but I haven't seen the PSAs or anything.
Yeah,
like
it's a bunch of elementary school kids, and the best thing you could do is watch it in silence first, and then watch it with the sound, and it's night and day.
Yeah.
At first, without sound, you would think that are these children of the corn? Are they crazy?
Yeah.
Why are they doing the things that they're doing?
Yeah.
And then when you hear it with a full sound, it's tragic and sad and painful to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a culture crisis more than anything. Samuel L. Jackson's got his own quote for it, where it's like, I grew up around guns all the time. We didn't have a freaking problem like this.
Exactly.
It's a people don't have a respect for life issue, as opposed to, a gun access issue or something like that. But I just think that what the court systems did in the over-prioritization of the mother equates to a lot of fathers getting distance from their kids. And there's actually been a lot of study going into how fathers affect their kids. I can link that to you. I'll send that link to you later, because it's basically like getting like a psychologist and like a social scientist together and just comparing notes, and you get to hear the breakdown of how kids that are raised by single parents. So when the kids, whether male or female, girls or boys, when they're raised by their dad, they have a lower ADD ADHD issue.
Okay.
When they're raised by their mother, they have a higher one comparably.
Interesting.
What apparently the social scientist teaches a psychologist or informs them is that children actually learn. I think it might have been anecdotally explained. So children can learn their empathy, or can learn their empathy from their dad, but they also learn. You would think it'd be the mother. But at least when it comes to how fathers play. How fathers take part in play with children and helping them become coordinated and learning the rules of good play.
You're assuming they do.
Well, you assume they do. There's a part where like the mother will not trust the father and will start to undermine him and get rid of play, and now the kids don't know how to interact, they don't know how to have good physical socializing, and they don't know how to have control of their bodies. And like up until 4 is the most critical. The first 4 years are the most critical for getting the child to be socialized. Otherwise, it is not repairable, more or less.
Okay.
But what was it? You learn from your father the difference between assertiveness and aggression.
I didn't.
Oh, I know. You didn't have... You had to learn that in other ways as you went.
But that's sort of like, because like the ideal raising is having the 2-parent system. The ideal raising. The reality is much different. Like, we both can attest to that. Like, your dad was just a biological donor. Mine more or less exited, and I saw him when I wanted to, but not regularly, from like 10 years old and on. So like, I sort of, as me and my girlfriend are watching that 70s show every night,
love it.
I'm identifying very hard with Foreman.
Yeah.
On account of, I recognize that weaselly, little, shy, nervous fuck, because I don't know what it is about, I don't know if it's the generation thing or what, but there's something about recognizing being the shy child to a very gruff, loud parental figures.
Okay.
And not being encouraged or not being prompted or not being made comfortable to where you could actually become a more like appropriately assertive, disagreeable person. Like being properly disagreeable, like on a technical term, between being too agreeable that people walk all over you to being disagreeable that you stick up for yourself and such. So those are the kind of things that I'm fascinated by. Just because, like...
Well, I have such an extreme to that it's...
Yeah.
It's, like, sad and tragic at the same time. Like, I in the short amount of time that I was exposed to my father, last time I saw him I was 7.
Yeah.
I did get to watch him beat my mother on a regular basis.
Fun!
So...
I think you're going to love Christopher Titus.
Most of the time when he was drunk, and...
Yep.
I couldn't do anything about it because of, my age at the time and just the way that he treated us in general. But I have this insane reaction every time I see a man hit a woman. Like, I immediately involve myself in this situation to my own detriment or not. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's like, this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, it's triggering.
I have jumped on a man's back and hit him in the head with my own shoe. For a stranger. It's just, this is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are the good friend to take. Oh gosh.
Yes.
Wow. How many of those ended up well? And how many of those like instant bar fights like actually ended well with like the stranger thanking you for like getting the asshole off them or something like that?
It was always thanking. Okay, one time at Florida Mall, the woman did not thank me.
Yeah.
And that was...
Mind your own business, I bet, or something like that?
No, completely cultural. She was wearing a hijab. Correct. And she was smacked in front of me. In my place of business, I was on the clock. Correct. And knowing I couldn't jump across the counter... And I did what I could. I did what I could in a professional manner, and I called the cops immediately.
Yeah.
And then when he began to berate me for, being a woman that was even speaking to him, number one, just fueled my anger even more. And like I knew I couldn't. It was a good thing that I could not lay anything on him. Not my hands. I was clocked in, so I'm not going to lose my job because of this fool. But you want to talk about pushing every boundary that I could possibly get to.
I think the important question is how recent was this? Because if you look at the
long time ago.
Damn
it was when I was at Florida Mall, so it was early 2000s.
Okay. Unfortunate. See, there's a certain version of that story that I love where, like, you have the very condescending ass hat, and then the woman just kicks the shit out of him. And he's just, like, just a snobby little shit. But then, like, I'm trying to picture, like, a really awesome line you deliver to, like, the abused wife. Is like, you're better than this. Please upgrade. Come do it. You know, you're here, but you should move to America. Like...
That would have been a good one, but it wasn't. And the way that my
this
parents,
is an instinctual reaction that you have.
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's caused me issues. Yes, I've almost gotten arrested. I've definitely almost got killed. Yeah, but it is what it is.
Can you lay out some of those stories for us then? Like
sure,
like run it.
Sure, I can. Okay, so I worked at Florida Mall.
Okay.
For 5 years, I think.
Okay.
And the majority of the time, I had a car. So I never had to worry about, getting a ride or anything of the sort. And it was holiday time, so
Everyone's happy, cheery, and everything's overpriced.
well, it led me to be in the mall like way past closing. This particular incident was outside of Florida Mall at 3 a.m. Okay.
That's good framework.
Right.
For those that don't know, Florida Mall is in an almost rough area.
Florida Mall has 2 police substations in the mall because of the crime that's there.
Yeah. Like it's a well-populated West Oaks mall.
I would also like to point out that in my entire 23 years, 8 months, and 7 days with not said company, Florida Mall was the place where I was working when I got robbed at gunpoint of my deposit at the bank right down the street. Shocking? No.
God.
What mall has been on the news more than any other mall? Florida Mall.
I think that's where Florida Man was born.
Probably. Probably. And watch out if there's a new sneaker coming out, because let me tell you something.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Like Foot Locker just has to like bring in armed guards just to hang out and make sure shit doesn't get jacked or what?
Worse. Last time that happened, they were releasing a shoe and they were doing like a soft opening of it at like the midnight prior to it actually coming out. And the police, the SWAT team, and the MBI had to shut it all down and kick everybody out.
Like it was just a huge horde showing up or something like that?
No, it's very quickly before they even got to passing out the shoes, the gun violence started. So, nope, you're not selling your shoes. This whole thing is shut down. Everybody get out.
I think that explains why whenever I'm near there, I'm like, I shouldn't be here much longer.
Right. So, 3 a.m., I was waiting for my ride to come pick me up. And at the time, I lived on Hoffner. So, Hoffner to Florida Mall, not very
Pretty
far.
straightforward, yeah.
Yeah, not very far
Like
at all.
436, Sand Lake, that back road, the McCulloch Road, or
Not even.
McCoy.
Sand Lake to Orange to Hoffner. I mean, you could get there in a really hurry in about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. You're talking like where Hoffner Court sort of ends there in Orange?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
the far west side of Hoffner.
Correct.
When I think of Hoffner, I think of where Goldenrod hits it.
No.
By 3 Points Bowling Alley.
No. This is definitely...
way out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next big road was 436.
Yeah.
It's between 436 and Orange where we lived.
Yeah.
So yes, 3 o'clock in the morning, outside of Florida Mall, waiting for my ride, and I hear this very loud and large pickup truck. It was probably like a Ford F-350, that kind of big, and it comes hauling down the parking lot at a very high rate of speed, and, driving over not just the lines, it's not even paying attention to, like, where you're supposed to be, but it even, like, went over some of the cement barriers that you would normally stop to park at.
That go right in front of your car.
Yeah. No, he's just...
Bam.
And it looks like he's coming straight at me. Woo. And I was sitting on the curb, and I got up and walked all the way back to where my back was against the wall of the building, because I'm like, what is this crazy person doing?
Yeah.
And so as the truck screeched to a halt, this very loud man got out of the car and started screaming and cursing, and in the back of the bed of his truck were some suitcases, 2 of them, and he took the first one and threw it over the front of the cab, and it landed in front of the truck and exploded, which was all female clothes all over everywhere. Ooh. And he's still cussing and screaming the entire time. And when the suitcase exploded, a very small, meek little girl gets out of the driver's side and comes over and starts to pick them up. Very quickly.
Oh, geez.
Very quickly.
Oh, geez.
And while she's on the ground right there, putting all her belongings back in the suitcase, the other suitcase is now flung up over the cab. And yes, it did hit her. And she starts crying, I'm trying to get away from you. Please don't. And after the suitcase had knocked her over, and he comes over and starts smacking her. And yeah, by that time I was already on his back with my shoe in my hand, beating him in the side of his ear and head. Yeah.
Is this a flat or is this like...
It was a wedge.
Oh, so it might have had some proper...
It was a platform-style wedge, yeah.
So a decent amount of contact there.
Correct.
Okay.
Not to mention, I am definitely a thick girl, never been small. It was probably the smallest I had been, but I was I had him
very able.
around the neck with my shoe.
Just beating him.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, how does this end?
My roommate that was on my way.
To pick you up?
Correct. Taking her to the train station.
You just took her to the train station and helped
Correct.
her. Okay.
Correct.
Nice.
So, decent ending.
Did he just like get scared by the random woman attacking him and just get in the truck and leave?
Well, I was extremely loud, and I knew that there were security guards that were still roaming around.
Yeah.
But when I started screaming things like, "No, I'm gonna kill you," when he was like, "No, bitch, you're gonna die," whole different.
So he's talking to the girl he's abusing, basically saying, like, "I'm gonna kill you," and then you're like, "No, I'm gonna kill you."
Correct.
Mount his ass.
Correct.
Start pounding.
Correct.
And then does he just like freak the fuck out, run into the truck, and get the fuck out of there, or what?
At one point in time, he turned around and tried to shove me into like
The truck or something like that.
correct because I was on his back, so
Yeah.
he flipped around and was.
Yeah.
That didn't help. That just helped me get higher up on his back.
Yeah.
It really did. And by the time I had a hand on one of his ears and was not letting go, I had fake nails at the time, so I broke off two of the nails in the top of his ear, and I had blood on my hands, so I'm pretty sure part of that was like in his ear.
Yep.
He started to get in his truck after that.
You feel the retreat happen. I was like, dismount. Puts prosthetic away.
Where do you need to go, honey?
So yeah, he got in his truck, and thank God I was scared for him getting in the truck because I thought he was just going to run her over because that's where the suitcases were.
Yeah.
But she knew what was coming.
Good.
You know,
Good
by
girl.
this time she had already put her suitcases where he couldn't run them over, and I saw her run into one open door at the back of where the food court is in the Florida Mall.
Okay.
So
How long were you on his back then? Like, I mean, it's got to be a couple
it
seconds.
felt like an hour.
Yeah.
So I couldn't honestly tell.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I gotta. So
Until he left is the
I
point.
I appreciate this isn't one of those dumb, like, almost Stockholm stories where, like, because I hate when you hear about those stories where, like, the woman is very obviously being abused by the guy, or even backwards. Someone tries to step in on the victim's behalf, and the victim's like, keep to your own business. And it's like,
Well,
I just lost more respect for you than I have for your abuser right now.
you know, and I've always been of a very scary mindset where, you know, if somebody always wanted to, like, fight me or jump me or anything of the sort, I was like, bring it. Let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more of the school of, I wish a motherfucker would. I wish a motherfucker would, because, you know, my uncle told me a long time ago, he's like, one day you're going to fuck around with the wrong person. And I looked him dead the face at like 8 years old and said, what if I'm that fucking wrong person? And he didn't have nothing to say. He's like, ah, shit, we got to worry about this one.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, my God. Okay, so, like, you just reminded me of one of Steve. So Steve, you know, I walk through the valley of death, or the shadow of death, and I fear no evil.
Correct.
And it has like a nice like lore.
One of my favorites.
And he ends it with like, even though I walk through the valley of death, I will fear no evil, because I'm the meanest sucker in the valley. Like, that's exactly, you just reminded me of that.
Totally. Bring it.
I can really appreciate that on account of, like, me and my dad, actually, funny enough, 2 generations, we've never been in fights.
Oh, wow.
My dad, even though he's a bar him and Ron White are the same person in that they exist in bars.
Oh, okay.
Like,
okay.
Like, if I go anywhere and I know my dad's there to me, I'm like, check the bar, he's there. Like I don't even bother with my eyes.
Right.
Like, I will look, because I'm just like, I want to find him. But otherwise, like, I'm just like, no, he's at the bar. How do you know?
You check the ice blocks and the freezers for the polar bears, don't you? Like, check that.
Oh,
But,
you'll
like,
never get to see my freezer.
But so for my dad, he always had, even when he was like playing pool or at bars or something like that, he always had friends that were willing to fight for him, actually. Mm-hmm. Like, that was, like, my dad, even to this day where he lives now in the middle of fucking nowhere, like, everyone's like, your dad's a really good guy. Like, and so it just doesn't, it baffled me. It baffles me in ways when you're in certain mindsets. But, like,
my dad was always sitting there, like, when people would challenge him, he had his fucking Italian friend that he's playing pool with, like, telling you, like, you want to fuck around here? Like,
Yeah.
It's like, I will end your life. Like,
Yeah.
my dad's never had to, like, throw a fist. He's like, that hurts your hands, too, man. I'm like, you don't want to do that shit. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, the only fight I could try to throw in there is just, like, this kid that was my stepbrother's age. He was like, no, I'll fight you or some shit like that. I was like, okay. Like, just like with the bet. Bob, I can't steal your shit out of the locker or whatever. And I was like, okay. And I just, like, had my... Because I've always been very, very, like, sort of try to be smart about the legalities of things. I was like, okay. Then get off on our stop. I'm going to go inside and change. I went inside, got in gym clothes, came back out. We're in the front yard. I'm like, okay. Start. Like, you have to throw the first punch on this. Because then I get full rights here. So, like, I have left the jurisdiction of the school. You may still be here, but you have gotten off the bus. You are on, like, my property. And we can have a fair fight right here. And Joey's, like, kind of freaking out about it. Because he knows it's not a fair fight. Like, I am still riding off the athleticism that I developed from 7th grade, 6th grade through high school. Mm-hmm. So, like, yay. Like, minimal alcohol in my 20s and minimal beer and, like, not too many pizza rolls and, like, a really good metabolism equals to, like, still, like, looking halfway decent, like, top to bottom. But, like, the kid's name was Hunter or whatnot, was just trying to fight me or something like that, but neither of us knew how to fight. I just knew how to do sort of... We both knew how to... I'd done play fights with all the kids that I grew up with. Mm-hmm. Like, we never had any, like... We never had fights where we were upset at each other. It was always just, like... It was, like, the classic fucking line out of fucking Who's Line. What's the best way to start a fight? Y'all want to start a fight? Like, that's all it was. Like, let's go play fight. Like, if anyone got hurt, you stopped everything. But otherwise, it was just, like, sort of like these throwing wrestling matches. No fists were ever thrown. Kicks were, like, minimal. So it was, like, that's all I sort of did with the kid. Like, I never got on the ground. I think I just, like, kind of threw him around. And then I, like, sort of get in trouble about that with, like, my stepdad or whatever. And I was like, started it. What do you want from me? Like, he wanted to challenge it. Already test it. Like, let's go. Like, you want to... It's like, do not initiate the challenge with me if I'm concerned with, like, a certain level of honor of the situation.
My sister's 19 months older than I am, and I can honestly say I've never started a fight with her, but I always finish them.
Yeah.
And even, like, I got sent home my first day at kindergarten.
Nice. Oh, I punched the girl in the eye, actually.
Some boy came up to me and
just started
pushed me. No, he just pushed me. And, you know,
Nice.
I wasn't well versed on the whole, like, oh, that means they like you thing. You push me, I won't push you back. That's where it went.
Yeah.
And my push was a little bit harder. And so
He's
when
on the floor crying.
he was, and then he called me a name which I don't even remember, but I called him a honky mofo because it was something that I had
Like,
heard.
full motherfucker?
No,
Just honky mofo.
I mean, I was like, what, 5?
Yeah.
I'd heard it. I didn't know what I was saying.
You said honky mofo?
Correct.
Okay.
So after I pushed him and his head kind of bounced a little bit on the, what? It did. He fell, his head bounced, and then he said something derogatory, and I called him a honky mofo, and by that time, when he pushed me, there was already, like, a teacher coming, you know?
Yeah.
But then I pushed him, and then he never got
Yeah,
up.
just buried him.
Right. And then when she heard honky mofo, like, of course we both got sent home.
Yeah.
You know, at least that part was fair.
Yeah.
But immediately I was taken, my mother, who didn't even speak to me when she picked me up, like,
Yeah.
takes me home and gives me to my uncle and was like, this is your fault. You fix it. Because that was where said word came into,
God.
and also, like, how to defend myself.
Yeah.
Because, again, a boy put hands on me. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen? He's
Yeah.
going to be laid out. That's all there is to it. I'm just letting you know now. It's on a schedule.
It's what is it? It's a fucking sequence map. It's a flow chart.
Yeah.
So lays hands on Maya buries you 6
Exactly.
feet under, calls
Exactly.
you honky mofo. Like,
Well, kind of. I mean, I remember somebody saying, oh, are you threatening me? I'm like, it's not a threat. It's a schedule.
I like that better. So like the cliche line version of that is like, it's not a threat, it's a promise.
Yeah.
Which was like, that was good. It's like, okay, that's a little more dramatized, and then it gets cliched. This is a great adjustment to.
You're about 30 seconds away, son. You know what I mean? Like, do you want to start running? Do you need a head start? Which direction are we going here? And I can honestly say, well, no, middle school, definitely. I think I did get into altercations with some females, but I think I've honestly had more physical altercations with boys.
Yeah.
Than
boys are more likely to have fights and everything with all their sort of tendencies.
And honestly, the only reason I ever laid hands on a girl to begin with, other than also in kindergarten kissing Angela Sizemore, she was adorable.
So you playing lesbo games like in kindergarten?
I knew that I was bisexual at a very young age.
Okay.
I found my uncle's Playboys under the sink and was like, wow, that's awesome. I was like 2 or 3 when I found them. I was like, that's pretty. That's very nice. Huh. And yeah, also, and it might have been a weird thing. Like my father used to walk around the house naked. Didn't like him. I mean, I didn't even call him Dad. Or I called him Craig because that was his name. And I was just, ew. I mean, I was disgusted by him with his clothes on, let alone with his clothes off. So
seems fair.
That's where it went. That's where it went.
Your childish intuition at the time apparently was very spot on. Well done discerning the shithead from your uncle. Well done.
Correct.
It's like, you get the gold star, and I'm with her on the divorce. Get the fuck out.
Exactly. Very much so. So I had a very interesting upbringing. Very much.
So, what's your most recent physical altercation then? Have you been on a good hiatus? Have you been a good little Maya? Or
my most recent altercation.
Or did you almost lay hands on Gio or something like that? Or
No. Most recent altercation would probably have been my sister.
Okay. Like some just family tussle at a family gathering or something like that?
You could call it that, sure. Okay. We'll call it that.
Okay. Well, we can keep that real low-key simple and everything.
I'm pretty sure that was one of the last ones. I mean, we're both at our 40s now, so I have to
like kind of mellow it out a bit and everything.
Nah, I wouldn't say that. Just things hurt after you hit things now, you know.
It's like I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna regret it more later.
The recovery time definitely gets you, you know.
Yes. I am feeling the beginnings of that.
It's when people say they stop drinking because they don't like how it feels to be hungover. Yeah. You know, I stop fighting only because it hurts the next day. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I won't do it.
I have some. So I play with a bunch of Marines every night. And
nice.
I just play video games with them and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So like we don't actually. If I could get actually good, like I have it in mind to like have a proper like martial arts training, but I also just want to have a Marines. Like I will pay you the salary for the next year. I want you to put me through every bit of training that you can. Because like the Marines was the only branch that I felt a calling to go to.
Really?
Albeit like for living standards and a lot of other things is like the worst. But it's like the most prideful one.
Oh yeah, my father-in-law did 4 tours in Nam.
Yeah.
And you know how they always separate the different departments, and then
the
Marines are part of the Navy.
But
if you ask a Marine and they say, "Aren't you a department of the Navy?" they will say, "Yes, the men's department."
yes. So like I could picture just like if I can because I have yet to properly like turn these into actual podcasts where like I get a website and then I RSS feed these to Apple. I have many things to do with all these companies and shit. But like the moment I get like I just need to like tell like my Marine friends like Josh and I was like, you need to listen to my episode. Why? I was like, you're gonna like her. You're gonna like her a lot. just that kind of shit.
You know, I mean, I would like to say that the majority of the time I'm a likable person. It's just you cross a certain line and then like we're not friends anymore.
We had an easy intro with like me getting you that glass from like the Austin trip, but like since then it's just like, oh, you're crazy too?
Yes.
Let's go. Oh my gosh, bless us.
Oh yes.
Gosh. To burn the normies alive and watch the plastics melt. Oh, it's great. How long have we been at this? Oh, okay. She got home at a decent time. 6:30 now. So we're about like 2 hours into this.
Wow, that would be quick.
It goes pretty quick. I'm having to like hone my interviewing skills, so I'm actually asking the guest questions instead of spouting my opinions all the time. It's like, what's my material? Oh, it's what I have to say. Wait, what is the reason I'm like? I've told you like the my mom project that I have.
Correct.
But like for this podcast being the Jailhouse Parlor podcast, that is like.
Why aren't we playing spades if this was the Jailhouse Parlor, man? Come on now.
The Jailhouse Parlor will get to more casual stuff.
Do I get to talk about being in jail? Because I've been there too.
We can go to that story next, actually. Like, the segue is fantastic. Okay, so no, like, so we'll do two things. One is what JHP is ideally going to be, as opposed to what pseudo is.
Okay.
And then where Jailhouse Parlor the name came from.
Okay.
So I was initially, I did pseudo back, like I told you before the podcast. I did pseudo films or whatnot.
Right.
I did a few little things that were like podcasts and some dumb game show stuff, and like doing a let's play stuff where we literally just had a phone record the gameplay on the screen and the audio, but it's still hilarious.
You gotta start somewhere, man.
Got to do something with low budget, but now I've like been able to stack cash for so long, like I get to like make this.
Nice.
So like, so I was about to do, so we get the name of like what the next podcast or whatnot's going to be from a friend. And so we'll get to that. And so I'm like, okay, Jailhouse Parlor is going to be like, it's going to be the graduation from pseudo.
Okay.
Okay. And then I start thinking about all the things that I wanted to do for the podcast, where it's like, I like the Joe Rogan setup, and I want to add the ability to have 4 idiots sit down in the same room and play a game on the screen, or 2 idiots sit down and play on the screen, just have different things.
Okay. And
as a lot of the lower production demand pieces of that started coming, I felt some of the heartfelt pieces of JHP, like the mom sing or like very significant interviews, or like personal creative ideas, were going to be diluted because JHP was going to be doing everything, and it never felt like that's what it was supposed to do. So what I did is that I revived pseudo and turned it into pseudo productions. So it was like the emblem is a P squared, and so pseudo is where I'm literally doing anything and everything I want. Just that's the canvas where I'm just throwing paint on the wall and seeing what sticks and what works well, and sort of like transitioning then over. So like,
I like it.
This is where like having you on, having Chantal on, having Mike on. These are either people that have important things going on in their life, like Chantal had her book coming out. Mike is someone that I worked with him when I was in retail. He worked over in the deli side of the store, and we just never got to properly connect. Mm-hmm. But I was positive on him, and he's still local, and he's a part of Blink-182 tribute band. Blink-182. They'll we're recording this on Thursday, so it's gonna be this Saturday. They're gonna be over at the Boombox or Bombshell over there off of Edgewater. It's like $5 tickets or something like that. But I wanted to highlight him and have him on because I was like, I feel like there is a potential connect. Because he only saw me at work. He saw me at one party that one of our coworkers had, and I blew his mind at the time because he'd only seen like asshole working me, and then he sees me like in social, like even just sober me. And he's like, dude, what the fuck am I dealing with right now with just like, being like kind of loose and zany at the time or something like that. And so I was like, how about we just have you on? So like JHP serves for high intimate things that I want to make intimate, like in one-on-ones like this. And also sort of providing a very distinct, purposeful way to catch up or get together with like either people that I wish I was closer with or good friends. Like pseudo is just like, here's the weekly podcast where I just get like a haberdashery of people and we just sit down and bullshit for like an hour or 3.
Right.
Or like we'll get one of those monitors up here and we'll play games and just stream everything. Or like for the second episode, I actually took everything out to the living room and set up out there and found the weaknesses of doing it out there. So like that can be done, but some things would need to be adjusted. So like these mic arms stay, or I get different mic stands.
Okay.
So like, but pseudo is just like whatever I want to do. And JHB is like, here's what I know I really, really want to do. And and I'm so bad at like maintaining good social relationships that either I need to have my friends help me do it, but I see this because I'm always so efficiently and business minded. Like, how about I just set up very distinct, purposeful things to where I either am going to get you over for a podcast for us to socially catch up and everything, or I make it to where I realize I want to catch up with this person. Let me have them on an episode. But if the episode doesn't work, then it's like I've made the contact. So now we are just going to go like to Corona Cigars or go have dinner.
Right.
But it's something that helps naturally get me to socialize with people that I care about, but I'm always too hesitant to properly just go engage. Like,
nice.
Hey, I'd like to have you on as an episode or something like that. Hey, it doesn't work out. Like, well, let's actually just meet up.
Nice.
So, and that's where...
That's good.
Yeah. So that's sort of like a lot of the things that are feeding into it. So that's sort of the distinction. Now, Jailhouse Parlor... That is a combination of... I have yet to have Ginger on any podcast, actually. I think he might have been on a... Was he ever on a beta? Because we did a few beta episodes of JHP. And then I was like... And then I realized I had to do pseudo for all the reasons that I just listed.
Okay.
And so I was like mentioning to like Ginger at one point, because I was like figuring out towards something and I didn't want it to be pseudo again at the time. And I was like, how about you come up with a freaking acronym or whatever? And he's like... JHP, and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, I don't know. I was like, you better go. What's it be? Jailhouse Parlor Podcast? He's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, fuck. All it was. That's literally all it was. Just he provided the acronym, and I was just like, because I really like. We had this music set up in like elementary school. It was called like In the Swing. It was like the music book, but it just ran through a bunch of like classic stuff, like the In the Swing, American Bandstand. And like Jailhouse Rock.
Okay.
It was like the sheet music was just here's part of that song and then here's part of that song and here's part of that song. So like Jailhouse Rock was just a very catchy name that I caught and kept with me and then brought into there, even though I didn't see Blues Brothers for the first time till probably 2015 area.
Oh, bless your heart.
And I reiterate, my girlfriend that you're going to meet when you're leaving here has no idea who they are.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Like, incredibly sheltered and damaged people we are. So, happy to share our Band-Aid. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah. So we'll be... If your schedule's pretty stable or something like that, I'm... pretty happy to just like invite you over just to meet all the other idiots that come on.
That'd be awesome.
It's like, hey, I'll put you on the list of all the pseudo idiocy. It's like, here's like an Xbox controller, and if you shit on us, or if you just provide good commentary, we'll just run at it.
Well, I can say one thing about my life is there's not one circle that I haven't involved myself in on one level or another. So I can always relate somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Even like in a churchy environment or a business environment and in the hood.
I'm with you on all those in different ways. I always love hanging out with I'll just say minorities for lack of a better term. It's not trying to be anything like any horrible connotation. It's that I realized this like in high school, is that the difference between effectively white culture and any of the minority cultures is that the minority cultures have a respect, an original respect idea of just authentic and speaking honestly.
Correct.
And not pretending to know what you're talking about.
Correct.
Which is what a lot of white culture does. It's like the classic thing that we both see where you have Chad. They're like, I know what it's like to be in the hood. I listen to Run DMC. It's like,
no, you don't, bro.
You need to walk and be like, I'm a fan of DMC, like, like that's what I've got to offer. Like,
Wow.
otherwise, I grew up in Winter Park, and I'm here. Like, my friend brought me here, and that's what I got. Like there's a failure on a lot of like normies in the white culture to know how to interact with minorities because like I'm educated, I know things. There's so much you don't know that you don't know.
When I was 7 years old, I met one of the smartest women I've ever met in my entire life, and she was almost 90, black woman, and she always hummed everywhere she was going.
Constantly musical.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And I do not possess that kind of musicality, number one.
Yeah.
But it drew me to her in such a way. Like,
Yeah.
immediately I was like, this is the smartest woman I've ever laid my eyes on. I need to speak with her.
Yeah.
And she happened to be one of my best friends at the time, grandmother,
Yeah.
and lived in that said Nob Hill complex.
Nice.
And she told me the best thing ever, that I don't understand why other people can't just swallow and like take a hold of.
Yeah.
And it's, love yourself, child. Just love yourself. Nobody can take that away from you. And I listened and I believed it, and that has got me through so many things.
How old were you when you absorbed that?
I was 7.
That's perfect, actually.
I was 7.
So perfect.
And
It's perfect that you were able to receive that and actually ingest and digest and input it. Because we all know there's plenty of advice we were given at a young age that we didn't apply till like we were 30.
Correct, because in the context of that, like
Yeah.
I lived in Indiana with my mother, father, and sister until that time, and my parents divorced. My sister stayed in Indiana with my father, and my mom and I came to Florida by ourselves.
Yeah.
So it was all of a sudden I'm completely alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if my mom wasn't around, I knew nobody.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
you
how I
had to-
met. That's how I met her.
You met her here in Florida?
Correct.
Proper. Nice.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she, you know, God bless her. She's, you know, not with us anymore. But that,
Did you get to be there when she passed or anything like that, or a funeral? Or?
being as young as we were when she did, we were kept away from it.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
it was just,
Yeah.
children, you don't need to see this. And I mean, they didn't even make us go to the funeral or let us, however you want to look at that.
Yeah.
You know, it was just.
Which is.
I mean, it goes both ways. I remember being at my great
Yeah.
uncle's funeral, who was
Yeah.
an extremely important person in my life, but
Yeah.
I was too young to understand.
Yeah.
I really was.
Yeah, that he was gone and everything, or.
I
that-
knew he was gone.
Yeah.
The whole him in the coffin thing really fucked me up
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know he's not here, but why are you displaying that?
Yeah.
Like, it really fucked with my head.
Well, this is where like the open casket thing is a really big question to me, because I've been to two of them now. My mother was luckily cremated and just hanging out on an urn, and no one was drunk, so she got to stay in the urn during the whole thing.
There you go. That's important statement right there.
But like the two open caskets that I went to, I either knew what physical deformities should have been on the body, or I could tell underneath the makeup. And I kind of sat there, and it's not the person.
Correct.
Like, it's so, like, literature and whatnot will explain it as best as it can forever. But there's something that's uncanny about looking at your friend's body, basically, and going, that's not them.
Correct.
And then you really wonder, at least, like, I'm right now wondering, it's like, why do we, like, who thought it was a good idea to have open caskets?
I couldn't tell you that.
Like, because I'm doing a very shallow exploration of it right now, but I'm kind of going like, why is that a good idea? Because like, unless it's like a very peaceful passing, like it's just, you know, they go to sleep, they didn't have any cancer, like draining their life, or they don't have anything that was, you know, they didn't have any big bruising or something like that, or any big scabbing from what happened. You're kind of sitting there going like I can probably kind of be okay with like a very peaceful, pretty, you know, dress up of like a grandparent, but it's like they're gone. Like, you know, they're gone. Like, you were there when they're passed. Like, putting their body there like 2 days later is just like it's a redundant action in my mind. Like, especially like either when you're the one, like, 'cause if my mom would have had it, it'd have just been like, I think in my mind now, and even then I've been like, why is this even here? Because like I was there when we called it. Like, I was the one that recognized she wasn't breathing anymore. I was the one that had them call the nurse and then told the doctor, can you please call the time? Like, please catch this? Like, it was like 7:07 or 7:04 or something like that, May 5th, 2016. So it's one of those where, like, she's now gone, and that's that. And there's that. I have to start making phone calls. And then for, like, my friend, it's like, you find him, and he's cold. It's like, well, here we are.
My best
then-
friend died in my arms in the hospital. Like I
Yeah.
held him until, you know.
He passed, and that feels very heartwarming to me for what a tragic situation it is. But it's like the best thing you can be, because for my mom, she very apparently waited for me to get back, and I recognized her breathing pattern when I got there. I recognize it's one of those where you hear the first, you get the second, so you get the pattern, but then you don't hear the third. And you just recognize, you look around, watch chest and everything. It's like, get the nurse. Time to go. But yeah, I just don't think it's a good... I don't know where having an open casket is a good idea.
It's led me to the point where I have this preoccupation with being in a casket at all. I never want to be put in that, ever. I have the desire to have a Viking funeral. Put me on a raft.
I will shoot that arrow.
There, you know,
I will shoot that
I
arrow.
had one person that was like, don't worry, Maya, I got this. And I happened to mention that at one of our friends' funeral. And one of my other friends put it very poignantly that I laughed and I appreciate to this day. He said, I think you're underestimating how many people want to shoot flaming arrows at your corpse. And I said, well, then it can be a free-for-all, you know? It could look like something from medieval times. That's fine. Don't put me in a box.
You know...
Put me on a raft.
If anyone wants to call like a culture appropriation and like a perversion of like a Viking funeral, I see it as such a beautiful romantic thing.
Fuck yes.
Because it's okay. So if you think of a traditional Viking funeral as we see it and as like Game of Thrones portrayed it, is that it's the lone boat going out and there's one guy who just makes the shot, and it's nice, poetic, crisp. It's very controlled, and that's good.
I only watched like 3 episodes of Game of Thrones.
Well, that's the example I'm driving on. I'm not here to have a Game of Thrones
Vikings? Yes.
Yeah, I did not.
Okay.
There's certain things I just choose not to get emotionally involved with.
You have to put it out
like my
here.
girlfriend was all on it. She loved the guy's wife because she's such a strong badass.
Her name is Lathica, and I might have to fight her because she's mine. Lathica's mine. Sorry.
I'll watch
Claimed her.
Okay, so that's the traditional image.
Okay.
Is that all the funeral processions on the bank, on the dock.
Correct.
The boat's going out with the body, and there's just the lone shot to send them off to the afterlife. But like, if you had well-disciplined people that are actually shooting arrows, where you just have like a Helm's Deep volley. Just a Helm's Deep volley, and I just can't help but say, like, we're showering her with love as we send her off.
There you go.
It may be violently inflaming, but like,
Yep.
If we all understand the metaphor that we're running on,
Totally.
there's no disrespect being applied.
Not just that, but there's so many people that are down with the way that I want to go, and they also know that as soon as they see my shit on fire, they gotta run because they're gonna get arrested for what they just did.
Give me the location. Like, give me the location, and I may be able to make it work.
See? This is why you have to get out and meet people, because, you know, things can happen.
I think there's probably, like, I have friends now that they're Northwestern Mutual agents or whatnot, so, like, their networking game, like, is their job. But for someone who does it, like, very matter-of-factly and passively, or at least just because of my social patterns, I'm the best networker I know.
Nice.
And it kind of goes back to the fact that I've got almost a 200 guest list for my October annual, and I have to try to run through that. I realized this is that I found you on the list, looked on Facebook, found nothing, and it wasn't until like I looked up Maya like on my phone and saw our text conversations that I was like, fuck, I didn't invite her. She'd have been fucking great. Like, damn, shit, oh man, because we're about to like probably like move to Austin inside the next probably 6 months.
Oh yeah.
So like this was probably the last annual we did this past October for at least Florida until like unless we're like going to come back and like we can somehow put together some shit. But
why Texas?
So the Rooster Teeth is in Austin. The production company I told you about that has their convention and everything.
Okay.
So I can almost see Austin as like the next Hollywood, but if they can keep it weird, then it'll be way less pedophilic and corrupted.
Okay.
And more creative, I think. But when I was there for that convention, I fell in love with the city.
Okay.
It was just way more cool and bigger
and personality. Like, it actually had a personality. Like, Florida has Disney, Miami, and the Sticks. Like, that's what it has. Like, Orlando used to have, like, a really good, like, music scene and stuff like that, I heard. And it's just all gone. And so...
They've evolved.
Something. But, like, I was out there and I loved it. And it was when I got the... Like, that whole trip was just basically a long process of becoming inspired to actually go out and do production. Because it's like, I don't know exactly what I want to do with it. Like movie making or series making or just podcasting, doing personality work. But, like, the only thing I know about me and what I'm born from with both my parents is that I want to work for the rest of my life.
Okay.
And the one thing I realized after doing 6 years of retail and seeing so many turnovers of bad managers and having good startups or good internships and just all that is that I am forever climbing towards a free man, and right now is pretty much the peak. But Melanie and I are both at a point where we've done enough recovery from our childhood tragedies that we are 10 years late, but we are ready to leave where we grew up. Because, at least for me, there are too many memories in this town. A lot of good, some bad. And this house is actually a ball and chain to me because it's my mom's house. And while there's infinite blessing for the money that's been made out of it with Airbnb, to having a house, to being able to refinance on it and get a very cheap, effective mortgage and stuff like that, like, that's all great and good, but it's in a side of town I don't want to be on. It's in a neighborhood that does not allow me to have guests and social or whatnot. Like, if you parked on the street, I hope you didn't.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I know better.
Yeah. So, like, I'm in a retirement community, and I'm, like,
I know.
28. And
You're 28 right now?
Yeah, I turned 28 this past October.
My birthday is June 28th. My most important year of my life was when I was 28. So
it looks like we're about to parallel a bit. 31 was what my very good friend Joan, she's an older woman. She's hanging out in retirement right now. But she just, like, kind of looked at me when we were in the middle of rehearsing our dance when I was doing ballroom. She's like, 31. That seems to fit you for some reason. I'm like, cool. I'll make that like a small goal, like a soft goal. So, like, 31 is apparently, by that interpretation, when I may hit full stride. Like, I won't hit retirement, but, like...
That's so funny. I thought for my entire childhood, all the way up until I was, that I was going to die in a car accident at the age of 31.
That's very weird.
It's very specific, isn't it?
Very specifically weird.
And now I'm 41, and I still think that I have had an entire decade of borrowed time.
I'm very happy to have met you in that decade.
Me too.
Now I need to get 2 bows for me and Melanie to...
Telling you.
Although it would be really unfortunate. It'd be like, so we have her ashes from the car crash. We need to put them on the boat to burn the ashes on the boat.
Don't worry. I have a very specific list where that is concerned. They have my GPS, and where my remains will ever end, they will be taken to said raft. And my wishes will be carried out,
okay,
whatever the circumstance.
Are we going to have a proper wood canoe or something like that for this shit? Or are we just going to get like a dilapidated canoe, fill it with timber?
No. One of the other things that has not even been designed or worked on was I will have said raft prior to
it's built?
Correct.
Proper.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. This is so exciting. I'm so excited for you to die.
Well, hey, I'm like a cat, dude. I have lived many lives.
Oh yeah,
many lives. I mean,
there's
so many times that I should be dead. I don't even know how many of those I'm up to, honestly. Yeah. So I do live.
Don't count, because then you know.
No,
and then it
don't see. Let it ride, whatever.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous.
You know, it's one of the things that my previous job did was bring people in front of me that needed to be for some reason or another.
Yeah.
I know.
No, I can register with that for sure.
For sure.
Because I think I told you before the podcast started how, like, if my conscious mind gets involved, it can really fudge with things. But if, like, I let my gut intuition write it out, then I just, like,
find the right decisions or the right people. Just like
Correct.
you, come here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's good stuff.
I'm trying to remember like how I got to like telling you the story about that class, or if I like, here, can you please make this? Thank you. And then it breaks, and it's like, okay, and here's the whole story of what happened and why this class is important, or something like that. I'm trying to remember how that initial batch of introduction went for us.
I think it was the RTX class.
It was the RTX class.
That was the first one.
Yeah, it was
By
the
far.
first one that was made.
Correct.
Where I was like, here's this glass. And I just stole this from a hotel.
I remember you coming in
with
that glass.
Yeah.
And I remember doing the replacement for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then your mom.
Yeah. Because those were the shot glasses. And then...
The flasks.
And then the flasks. That goddamn... So, did I ever show you the video?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
But I do have to say, like, that particular
the
instance
flasks one?
turned into something that it wasn't just thrown at Geo. Well, it just turned into the 14 flasks. It did. Like, that was a thing, you know?
That's the name of the project.
One of our other employees broke an $85 clock accidentally and, like, started freaking out. Just, oh my God, I really didn't mean to do that. And what's happening? I'm like, girl, give it to Jesus. It's just, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And Gio said, hey, you didn't fuck up 14 flasks, dude. You need to relax. And that became a thing.
Oh,
it was a thing.
Oh my gosh.
And like, if he said something stupid, somebody would be like, 14 flasks. You know? If he would correct me on something, I'd be like, well, thank you for teaching me something. And then he, if he kept running his mouth about something, I'd be like, I've never fucked up 14 of anything. It was a thing from the time it happened until he left. And even beyond that, because me and Gina still talk about that shit. 14 flats.
I gotta say, so I will tell you the reception obviously was great. But we actually have on video with the audio, might have had my girlfriend, but I think one of my mother figure, Tyler, recorded it or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I got exactly what I wanted. I think I got exactly what I wanted, and Good. I also knew how to play the politics too.
Good.
So went off without a hitch. I only how'd this go? I had a few teachers that I had to hand deliver them afterwards. One of them, I ended up just giving it to his secretary, actually, because, he wasn't even, like, really a part of the program. Right. Like, he didn't care.
Just one of the honorary ones you told me about?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Like, well, the thing is that, like, a lot of this, like, you remember the entire idea. The front is, like, here's the teacher, here's the IB emblem, and here's, like, our year of graduation.
Right.
Like, you'll remember that year, everything for the rest of your life, and, like, every teacher, and even the program director is, like, yeah, I'm saving this for, like, the rest of my life kind of thing.
Totally.
And then on the back side of these, like, half-gallon flasks, so they're, like, this fucking big for those, like, want to play the home game.
Oh, I remember.
I know you remember.
Something I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys just have to throw away the rest of them, basically? Like, what did you do with the other ones that were the ruined ones?
Here's the other irony of this and why the 28 is so prevalent. So after we went through 28 of those flasks...
Today's weird.
Isn't it, though?
Today is fucking weird. Like, you call me when you get home.
I will.
If you don't call me within an hour after you leave here, I'm calling the cops and having them find your burning car. Oh, my God.
Yeah. That's how my life happens.
Oh, bless. Oh, bless. So, the 14 flasks that used the old design. Because what actually prompted, outside of just Gio having a lapse... probably a very innocent lapse, but there's a certain point where I think your intuition should be like, something's off. Is that I had test run the idea on a personal flask that was for old school pseudo with the full cast that had been a part of it. Uh-huh. And he took the list of people that went on the back and put it on the back of all 14 flasks.
Yep.
For the fuck up.
And you were the one that handed him the list of all the individual. Trust me.
I made
that was
colored Excel spreadsheet.
I know. I know.
Like, there's a certain amount of...
Oh, I know.
Like, that's where I think I walked out, because you weren't there that day when I came in and, like, discovered that for him, and I got out, and I think I just... You know.
I was there when you came to pick him up.
Oh, and we found that? Or whatnot?
When,
yeah, because I wanted to text him. I was sitting in the parking lot. I was ready to text him.
After you left, and I called him on his cell phone, I the first thing I said was, I've never been so glad you're not standing in front of me right now. He's like, I think so too. What's happening? And I'm like, I'm on the clock right now. Whatever you do by the time I am not on the clock, don't answer a call from me. Just don't. He was like, heard. So what can I fix? And then when I said, the next round of 14 flasks will be here in 24 hours. And he was like, what the fuck? And I said, again, we're not discussing. Like, I'm starting to twitch, you know? Like, I was going to lose my shit.
Okay. So to explain, so we have the test run, that's the pseudo flask. I still have that and everything, but I don't drink out of it because it rusts inside actually a little bit.
Does it?
It does. It is stainless steel, but I think when you leave water in it for an extended period of time...
Oh, yes.
I think it started rusting on the border, so I think the welding is what will rust eventually. But so on the backside, it had a unique set of names for the original cast of Pseudo. But for all the teachers' flasks, the fronts obviously have a different teacher. I think he actually had the same teacher on the front of all of them too. So the fronts were all going to just have different teachers' names.
Right.
Straightforward, pretty easy. But the backs, I had to take a distinct poll, and I had to basically confirm people's commitment on having them donate any amount of money, whether it was $5 or $20 to me, and give me a list of the teachers they wanted their names to be on the flask for.
Makes sense.
So one person could be on one flask, or one person could be on all flasks.
Yes. It's all coming back to me now.
Yes. So it had everything to do with, like, if you had a teacher that you felt a significant connection or impact from, you give me their name and whatever amount of money, I don't care, and I will make sure your name is on those flasks. So it's a very high execution project that I actually still have all the G Drive folders. Like, all the spreadsheets are still there of just that project. And actually I did pay off all the debt because I put all that on credit cards. Nice. That was like, oh God, it was like $2,000 of stock I just sold and just threw at the shit. Because that's a whole bunch of other shit too, other than just that project. So, like, that's the level of execution, is that every single flask is entirely unique, and the only repeat is the actual IB logo.
Okay.
But everything else is, like, different teacher name and different batch names on the back each side. So, like, it's such a high level execution that when you get there and you see someone's name that shouldn't be anywhere near this flask, like, I was ready to, like, tell him to fuck off, like, in the parking lot. Like, and then I just got defeated. Like, you ever have that to where, like, you're not giving up entirely, but you just let the feeling of defeat just hit you? It's like, I'm calling it a day. I'll be back.
Don't worry, I got you.
We got it. Like, Gio was
I
up,
got
like,
you.
We nailed that still. Because did I pick them up or did you deliver them?
I offered to deliver them because the time frame, because we didn't know when they were going to be delivered.
Yeah.
And I said, worst case scenario, if I missed the window, I was coming to you.
So the plan,
and we happened to get in the window where you're like, no, I can get there.
Yeah. So the idea is that May 5th, 2018 was my graduation day, and my idea, because there was going to be a sort of a cocktail thing after the main graduation ceremony, the IB program was going to have its own cocktail thing afterwards. And my whole idea is like, well, if all the teachers are going to be there and all the IB students are going to be there, then I can make this an event. So I was like, I need these by basically before the 5th. I need to have them in my car so I can just drive to UCF, park, go to the ceremony, get back to the car, grab the box, and take them over. And then this fuck up happens, and I had been given the sense of a long timeline to execute such a massive engraving undertaking. And it's like the 2nd or the 1st or something like that when this fuck up occurs. And I'm just like... But y'all pulled it out like in 20... Like, I feel like they arrived, and then within less than 24 hours, they were all done.
That is correct.
So it's just like, okay, pick up, head over. And it went off without a hitch, actually. Like, gosh. Oh, that project. Oh,
Yes.
my gosh.
Yes.
We both get to blame some gray hairs on that project, man.
Well, my gray hair, like I say, thank you, Jesus. It is genetic for me. It is. My mom is completely white. My grandmother and my grandfather, and they all have blue eyes too. So I just look like the rest of them.
You're just like an old Aryan.
Yeah, totally.
Do you watch movies at all?
Of course.
You go out to cinema and watch? Have you seen
When-
Jojo, have you seen Jojo Rabbit?
No.
It's a new one out by...
But when we're not on the podcast, I will tell you exactly how Aryan.
Oh, jeez. Oh, okay.
No, it's creepy.
Okay. More on that never,
Yes.
apparently.
Well, maybe. It's just a horrible context.
Yeah.
You can't choose who your family is, you know what I mean?
No, but like that area, so like we went out, so we were watching Letterkenny, or just a Hulu show, and we kept seeing this ad for Jojo Rabbit, and it was never in theaters when, like, during that time. Like, it's an ad that's too early. And then we finally see it's available, we go and watch it. It's hilarious.
What is the premise?
It is about a 10-year-old during the final years of Nazi Germany.
Okay.
But it's directed by, have you watched Marvel and everything?
Of course.
Okay. So Ragnarok, the director, Taika Waititi, or whatnot his name is?
Okay.
Yeah. He directs this.
Okay.
And it is a fantastic... I want to say something that indicates like a rainbow of emotion, because it is a satire of Nazi Germany and Hitler.
Okay.
And it is fantastic, in my opinion.
Okay.
We actually ran a review on it, so it's like spoiler alert on that review over in Pseudo. But it was just so funny because it had like the one clip in the trailer that's just like repeatedly funny. And we're like, we have to go fucking see this. Just like, what is this fucking movie? Because in the trailers or whatnot, it makes Hitler's there and he's just acting ridiculous. Like some Monty Python level ridiculous Hitler. Right. And you're like, what the fuck is this movie? And we go watch it and we were very happy with it. Okay. So like if you want to go see a Nazi Germany satire that has a lot of really good stuff going on in it, Jojo Rabbit.
Okay. I will definitely have to check that out.
Yeah. And I need to go see Medalist Brooklyn, because that's apparently like a masterpiece of our time for nowhere.
Never heard of it.
You know Edward Norton?
Of course.
Yeah, he directed and like curated this thing.
I love him.
He did like several combinations of different music. So like people were telling him, because he was on the Eddie Timpy podcast with I want to say Chris Hardwick for some reason. I don't think that's right. And then he was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
I didn't even know Joe Rogan had a podcast.
Joe Rogan has the most popular podcast in the world, actually. It is probably at a good estimate that he is the most popular interviewer in human history.
Okay.
This is fun facts. That's the fun world about the internet. It's like, I have never heard of these people, but go on. But yeah, so like Edward Norton has basically like taken on like a classic noir look.
Okay.
And he's adopted some historical inspiration, and he's created this sort of detective movie, taking hints from Chinatown with Jack Nicholson, but flipping the character a bit. So like Bruce Willis plays like the Jack Nicholson character, but Edward Norton plays a Tourette's detective. So he acts, nice. He leads and directs this. It's got Willem Dafoe in it. It's got Alec.
I love him.
It's got Alec Baldwin as a serious villain.
Love him.
So like
yeah, I'll be watching
that. It's been on my list outside of like I think Joker, Jojo Rabbit for like just seeing what like when
this is what they were talking about in the roast of Alec Baldwin. Because
did that just come out or something? Or?
Recently, yeah.
Okay.
It's I highly recommend it because Edward Norton is on it, and they talk about how long it took them to do that project and how you got to see it because I don't want to ruin anything for you.
Are they still all on Comedy Central and stuff?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was the last roast that was done.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
It was very recent.
So I haven't had cable in ages.
You could YouTube it at this point.
Solid, like the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Very much so.
Solid. I feel like Comedy Central is probably the only cable network that's like not concerned about surviving cable.
Probably.
Because they're just like, we make funny shit. We have South Park. Like we just
Daily Show's still doing good. Trevor Noah is solid.
Trevor Noah does a solid job. He doesn't have Jon Stewart's like insightfulness. Like, cause Jon Stewart could take you down a rabbit hole of thought.
Oh yeah.
Like, and you're just sitting there like getting revelation.
Yeah.
But Trevor Noah does a very good dialogue.
He does. And he's very,
And him being
what's the
foreign,
word? Unifying, I think?
Yeah.
Very much so.
But like he has a great perspective of being South African, so he's a foreigner who's Americanized, who just provides this perspective of just like, oh, I know this guy. Talking about Trump, I was like,
Right.
I've dealt with these every 10 years.
Yeah, my favorite, he's got a stand-up, I think, that's called, like, I Was Born a Crime. Yeah.
Explaining, like, how his parents had to walk across the street from each other and stuff.
Correct.
Like, he's a great celebrity and commentator on where America's at and sort of good directions to hold.
Totally.
To go in.
I agree.
But, yeah. I'm very sad that Stephen Colbert he's like nailed like what was the old school like peak with the Late Show, when podcasts are probably where he should be at.
I love him. I don't care.
Oh, yeah, I love it too.
And I love the time.
I feel like he's elevated it.
Oh, totally.
I feel like he's elevated it massive because when he's allowed to nerd out about Tolkien and Lord of the Rings.
Oh my God, he is like primo.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who knows more shit than he does.
Did you ever see him tell the story about how he met his wife?
The one where he cried? Because I've seen one where he was talking about his wife and he just like lost his mind.
I don't think he cried.
It was like I cried with him because I was like, oh my God.
This is the one where it's like the in between the scenes kind of thing where he's just chatting with the crowd.
No, I don't.
And they're not specifically rolling for TV.
Oh.
He just tells the short story about how he met his wife and how like he was like about to be engaged to one girl and he's like, I need to go home to like my Carolina roots and think about this or something like that. And just tells that whole, like, yeah, like I'll watch that with you like once we cut here. Because like between him nerding out, having very good fair interviews even when he has Republicans on, because like I remember, and that's between the nerdism and that, it informed me how much he was elevating it, where he had a Republican on and the crowd tried to boo him and he said, no, you will not boo my guest that I invited on. Like just
shut it down.
I'm just like, we need more of that.
Yeah.
Like, we need more of that on the mainstream pieces.
Very much so.
So, like...
But that's why, like, when he did the transition from the Colbert Report to the Tonight, I was like, how is he going to do this? Because he was totally playing a character.
Oh, yeah, he was a Bill O'Reilly.
And now he's totally real, you know?
Oh, yeah. I think... So, you remember how he left Colbert Report and then it felt like it took forever for him to get on the Late Show?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that was on purpose.
Of course it was.
I think that was him.
You gotta defrag, man. You gotta get to where you're going.
He needed a vacation for sure, and I think he needed to at least probably maybe fight with the program on with NBC or whatnot to like get what he wanted out of his show. But I think it inadvertently provided enough distance between Stephen Colbert of the Colbert Report and Stephen Colbert of the Late Show. I think it may have provided enough of a gap to where like old Colbert was old and you're waiting on new Colbert, and then it allows him to come out and be a new Colbert.
Well, that's why I was surprised he didn't just go back to Stephen Colbert, because his sister is I know she's in politics, and I know she's elected at something in their home state.
Yeah, and she's actually Colbert.
Right.
Is how it's pronounced.
I kind of expected that, but I wasn't shocked when I didn't see it.
No, Colbert rolls off so much more easily.
It does.
Colbert's just, hey, I'm Colbert. And we're done here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Man. So I think we can call it here and get on with some dinner. And we can watch that clip. So yeah, we're going to call everyone. We've been at this, a little over 3. Or at least near 3. So that's good enough here. Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thanks
Maybe
for
we'll
having
get
me.
to more egregious stories once we get more comfortable with this medium and everything.
Yes, we will.
Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you.
And I don't know when this is going to be uploaded.